Chapter 581. Annihilation, the Power of the Spiritual Artifact. Roar. After brewing for a long time and absorbing a vast amount of spiritual energy, the leaving fire tripod, under Lu Qing's command, let out a dragon's roar, carrying a soul-shaking aura, and smashed toward the mountain peak where the red-faced old monk and others were with extreme speed. Not good. Feeling the mountain-like terrifying force coming from above, the red-faced old monk's face drastically changed, and his pupils instantly shrank to the size of needle points. But it was already too late for him to warn the other disciples. All he could do was to frantically pour divine soul power into the array flag in his hand. As a large amount of divine soul power was activated, the mountain peak where the red-faced old monk was located lit up brightly with array light, raising an array formation light screen that enveloped the entire mountain within it. After doing all these, the red-faced old monk still did not feel a hint of safety. A streak of golden light burst out from his body, forming a protective shield around him. Though this seems long-winded, everything actually happened in the blink of an eye. From the moment Lu Qing activated the leaving fire tripod to smash downward, to the moment the red-faced old monk activated the array, it was all a matter of a single breath's time. Just as the array formation light screen had lit up, the leaving fire tripod had already smashed onto it. The might of the spiritual artifact was dreadful. Even though Lu Qing's current cultivation was not enough to unleash even 1% of the leaving fire tripod's power, this long-accumulating earth-shattering strike was still not something the hastily set-up array of suspended mountain could defend against. Therefore, just as the array defense light screen raised by the red-faced old monk lit up, not even lasting for the time of one breath, it shattered like an eggshell under the descending leaving fire tripod. Then, in the horrified eyes of the many suspended mountain disciples, it fiercely bombarded the mountain peak. Boom! The leaving fire tripod, which was as large as a small hill, smashed onto the mountain peak, and in an instant, the ground shook and the mountain trembled. The incredibly hard body of the cauldron directly blasted a huge crater into the entire mountain peak. The overwhelmingly strong impact swept across everything, leveling nearly all buildings and trees within 100 zhang to the ground. What was more terrifying were the flames of spiritual fire that spewed out from the leaving fire tripod. They spread out, turning the entire mountain peak into a sea of fire. Ah! No! Supreme Elder! Save me! What kind of fire is this? Why can't it be extinguished? The heaven-shocking strike of the leaving fire tripod was just too powerful. Those suspended mountain disciples had not managed to escape far, and some with slower movement techniques were crushed to death by the extremely terrifying impact force the moment the leaving fire tripod hit the mountain peak. Their inner organs crushed and their bodies shattered to pieces. Those lucky enough to escape faster and not killed by the shock were unable to escape the sky of flames that followed. The flames spewed by the leaving fire tripod were spiritual fire, capable of burning the physical body and searing the divine soul. Once it caught a little onto the body, unless one possessed a special cultivation technique or was protected by a magical treasure, it was nearly impossible to extinguish before it completely consumed its target. The suspended mountain disciples, the most powerful of whom were at most at the innate chi refinement realm, how could they withstand the burning of the spiritual artifact's fire? Whether they protected themselves with true chi or spiritual energy or even rolled on the ground, they couldn't put out even a fraction of the spiritual fire on their bodies. For a time, the entire mountain peak was filled with the screams of suspended mountain disciples, filled with despair. Looking down at the scene below, like hell on earth, Lu Qing above in the sky, his face remained unchanged. From the time on Holy Mountain when the monks of Suspended Mountain tried to forcibly convert his master, to the subsequent assassins sent from the Wujin building, the conflict between him and Suspended Mountain was destined to be a fight to the death, with only one survivor possible. Since they were enemies, naturally there was no reason to show mercy. Indifferently watching the disciples below struggling and screaming in the sea of fire, Lu Qing gestured with his hand, and gradually rising from the crater created by the impact on the mountain peak was a big cauldron, burning with flames. While shrinking, it approached him. By the time it reached him, it had become the size of a thumb, landing in Lu Qing's hand. "Young master, I can't help you anymore after this, you need to be careful. Yan's somewhat weak voice rang out in Lu Qing's mind at this moment. Don't worry, Elder. Just rest easy. Lu Qing nodded solemnly and put away the leaving fire tripod. He could feel Yan's weakness. This was the preciousness of a spiritual artifact. Because of the artifact spirit's presence, without the master's control, it could still unleash great power. In fact, at Lu Qing's current cultivation realm, without the existence of Yan, it would have been utterly impossible for him to activate the leaving fire tripod to such a formidable extent. Just the massive amount of spiritual power alone could have drained him in an instant. However, that strike had consumed all the accumulated spiritual charm of the leaving fire tripod. Without a period of nurturing, it would be difficult to recover. Just as he put away the leaving fire tripod, Lu Qing's expression shifted, and he looked down. Then, he saw a figure slowly climbing out from the crater created by the impact of the leaving fire tripod. It was the red-faced old monk. But now, the red-faced old monk no longer had his previous composure and looked extremely wretched. His robe was tattered beyond recognition, and half of his body was gone, leaving only a charred skeleton. Faintly, one could still see the inner organs throbbing inside, which looked very horrifying. If it weren't for the layer of golden light desperately protecting his inner organs, he would have surely perished. However, the red-faced old monk right now couldn't care less about his injuries. He even ignored the weakening screams of his surrounding disciples and looked at Lu Qing in the sky with sheer terror. That heaven-shattering strike had indeed been too terrifying. Chapter 582. If not for the critical moment when he used the array formation light screen to block for a brief moment, executing his movement technique to dodge being struck directly by the leaving fire tripod, he would probably be pulverized, his body nowhere to be found. Leaving fire tripod. The sect spirit artifact of the ancient immortal sect of Lihua sect, the leaving fire tripod, is actually in your hands. Are you a descendant of the Lihua sect? The red-faced old monk asked hoarsely, his voice dripping with disbelief. Seeing the appearance and power of the giant cauldron that Lu Qing had just summoned, he finally recalled some records in the ancient scriptures at the temple. Old monk, I didn't expect you to be quite capable to actually withstand a strike from my leaving fire tripod. Looking at the golden light protecting the old monk's inner organs, Lu Qing realized that the opponent must be possessing a treasure. Otherwise, even if he hadn't been directly hit by the leaving fire tripod, he shouldn't have survived that terrible onslaught. He silently marveled inwardly, truly, a cultivator at the perfect foundation establishment stage. His means of preserving life were indeed remarkable. It really is the leaving fire tripod. Hearing Lu Qing's words, the red-faced old monk knew he had guessed correctly, and his heart grew even more incredulous. According to the records in the temple's ancient scriptures, the ancient immortal sect of the Lihua sect had been annihilated before the curtain had fallen on the last cultivation era. Their sect spirit artifact, the leaving fire tripod, had also disappeared without a trace. Now, after tens of thousands of years, the spiritual artifact had been revived and had reappeared in the world, and was now in the hands of a highly cultivated, enigmatic powerhouse. Could it be that the ancient immortal sect of the Lihua sect, its annihilation was merely an illusion, and in reality it had, like their four great secret places, also survived in some secret realm, enduring through this long period of depleted spiritual energy, and now it was also emerging? But why would the Lihua sect want to oppose them at Suspended Mountain? Even during the ancient cultivation era, there had been no significant grievances between their two sects. For a moment, numerous speculations and thoughts surfaced in the red-faced old monk's mind. But the next moment, a strong sense of danger arose in his heart. Without thinking, the red-faced old monk abruptly moved sideways to dodge. Just as his figure had moved, a sharp sword chi barely missed his body and slashed at the ground, leaving a deep sword mark where he had just been standing. But before he even had time to catch his breath, the next moment, a skyful of sword chi fell down, crisscrossing each other, heading straight for the red-faced old monk. He just activated a spiritual artifact. Why does he still have so much spiritual power? Looking at the skyful of sword chi, The red-faced old monk's face showed a hint of despair. He had exerted all his strength earlier to resist the power emitted by the leaving fire tripod. Now, not only was he seriously injured, his protective treasure damaged, but his spiritual power was also nearly depleted, leaving him with no strength to fend off Lu Qing's storm-like sword chi assault. At the same time, he was utterly baffled. Why could Lu Qing, after activating such a powerful spiritual artifact as the leaving fire tripod, still launch such an attack as if nothing had happened? It totally defied logic. Just as the red-faced old monk was about to be dismembered by Lu Qing's sword chi. Just then, a streak of light flew from afar at an extremely fast speed, arriving before Lu Qing's sword chi and transforming into a semi-transparent golden bell, enveloping the red-faced old monk within it. Yang! 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 Lu Qing's sword chi struck the golden bell, yet it failed to break through the defense. While the bell trembled violently under the impacts, it still couldn't be breached, leaving the red-faced old monk inside unscathed. Elder Jin Zhong. Seeing the golden bell enveloping him, the red-faced old monk showed a look of wild joy. Ha! Lu Qing also sensed something and looked up towards the distant horizon. Then he felt several powerful presences rushing toward him from deep within the mountain range at great speed. With a thought, he knew that reinforcements from Suspended Mountain had arrived. Without further entanglement, the light emanating from the golden small boat under his feet brightened, and his entire being turned into a streak of light, fleeing out of the mountain. Just as Lu Qing left, not even 10 breaths later, several figures emitting strong auras appeared in the sky. They were several old monks in gray robes, like the red-faced old monk. Thinking of escaping? The group of old monks first looked in shock and anger at the devastation below, then turned towards the direction Lu Qing had fled, intending to pursue. Elder Jin Zhong, hold on. This man cannot be pursued. Upon seeing this, the red-faced old monk was terrified and, regardless of his own injuries, immediately spurred his spiritual power and cried out loud. So excited was he that the inner organs, which had been protected by the power of a magical treasure, burst apart, spewing blood from his mouth. Seeing his extreme emotions, the other old monks, though puzzled, could only stop and land beside the red-faced old monk. Elder Chi Xian, how are you? Why won't you let us chase that evil demon? Asked one of the old monks. This evil demon is mysterious, and he holds a spiritual artifact in his hand. If we rashly pursue, it's hard to say what might happen. The red-faced old monk quickly explained. A spiritual artifact. How is that possible? The other monks were immediately shocked upon hearing this. It's absolutely true. See the surrounding spiritual fires? They are emitted by that spiritual artifact. The fire is extremely powerful. Nothing can withstand it. Living creatures that touch it, any cultivator below perfection in Foundation establishment can hardly resist and can only be burned alive. The monks looked at the flames burning around them, their expressions changing slightly. With their keen vision, how could they not recognize the terrifying nature of these spiritual fires? Another monk, with a distressed expression, asked, with such fierce fire, what about all the disciples? In their divine soul sensing, the entire mountain, apart from the red-faced old monk, showed no other signs of life. The red-faced old monk sighed. They have all perished in the sea of fire. The evil demon came too suddenly. The disciples didn't have time to scatter before they were annihilated by his spiritual artifact. It turned out that, in just this short amount of time, the disciples of Suspended Mountain who were exposed to the spiritual fire could no longer endure and were burned to death. All perished. The eyes of the old monks widened suddenly, their hearts filled with extraordinary sorrow. These were nearly half of the elite disciples sent out from their temple. Could they have all been lost just like that? Evil demon, this vendetta, if not avenged, swears us not to be human. An old monk clenched his teeth and immediately made a bitter oath. Elder Chi Xian, you confronted that evil demon. Do you know who he is and why he would be so vicious, harming our Suspended Mountain disciples with such cruelty? Another old monk asked. I couldn't recognize his identity, but the spiritual artifact he used I recognize. It is indeed the sect spirit artifact of the Lihua sect from the ancient immortal cultivation era, the Leaving Fire Tripod. While the red-faced old monk was sharing his conjectures with the other monks, above the skies outside the Lingshan mountain range, a faint aura, concealed within a white cloud, that mysterious ghost-faced man. Who exactly is he to be able to control a spiritual artifact? Taoist Yang Ming looked towards the direction of Lingshan, still watching the raging fire blaze with a look of utter shock in his eyes. Previously, following the trail of that golden streak, he had arrived at the edge of the Lingshan mountain range. Then he witnessed a scene that profoundly shocked him. He saw the mysterious ghost-faced man above, commanding a giant cauldron, carrying immense might, and smashing down on the largest mountain peak below. The many disciples of Suspended Mountain, under this earth-shattering attack, had no power to resist. They were like ants and moths easily obliterated. Even the majestic mountain, a symbol of the ancient Suspended Mountain, was blasted with a huge hole, burning unrestrained by the fierce fire. Feeling the power emitted by the giant cauldron, Taoist Yang Ming, who hailed from a secret land, didn't need further proof that this was indeed a genuine spiritual artifact. Suspended Mountain had actually provoked a terrifying powerhouse who possessed a spiritual artifact. Realizing this, Yang Ming's heart was both shocked and excited. Naturally, the shock was at the appearance of the spiritual artifact. However, the excitement came from seeing that his arch-nemesis had provoked such a formidable enemy. The days ahead would certainly be challenging. He also became more curious about the identity of that mysterious ghost-faced man. That was a spiritual artifact, after all. Even their Qingyang temple had only one, and because it needed to suppress the secret realm, it could not be brought out. What kind of background did this mysterious ghost-faced man have to be able to control a complete spiritual artifact? If not for the critical moment when he used the array formation light screen to block for a brief moment, executing his movement technique to dodge being struck directly by the Leaving Fire Tripod, he would probably be pulverized, his body nowhere to be found. Leaving Fire Tripod, the sect spirit artifact of the ancient immortal sect of Lihua sect, the Leaving Fire Tripod, is actually in your hands. Are you a descendant of the Lihua sect? The red-faced old monk asked hoarsely, his voice dripping with disbelief. Seeing the appearance and power of the giant cauldron that Lu Qing had just summoned, he finally recalled some records in the ancient scriptures at the temple. Old monk, I didn't expect you to be quite capable to actually withstand a strike from my Leaving Fire Tripod. Looking at the golden light protecting the old monk's inner organs, Lu Qing realized that the opponent must be possessing a treasure. Otherwise, even if he hadn't been directly hit by the Leaving Fire Tripod, he shouldn't have survived that terrible onslaught. He silently marveled inwardly, truly, a cultivator at the perfect foundation establishment stage. His means of preserving life were indeed remarkable. It really is the Leaving Fire Tripod. Hearing Lu Qing's words, the red-faced old monk knew he had guessed correctly, and his heart grew even more incredulous. According to the records in the temple's ancient scriptures, the ancient immortal sect of the Lihua sect had been annihilated before the curtain had fallen on the last cultivation era. Their sect spirit artifact, the Leaving Fire Tripod, had also disappeared without a trace. Now, after tens of thousands of years, the spiritual artifact had been revived and had reappeared in the world, and was now in the hands of a highly cultivated, enigmatic powerhouse. Could it be that the ancient immortal sect of the Lihua sect, its annihilation was merely an illusion, and in reality it had, like their four great secret places, also survived in some secret realm, enduring through this long period of depleted spiritual energy, and now it was also emerging? But why would the Lihua sect want to oppose them at Suspended Mountain? Even during the ancient cultivation era, there had been no significant grievances between their two sects. For a moment, numerous speculations and thoughts surfaced in the red-faced old monk's mind. But the next moment, a strong sense of danger arose in his heart. Without thinking, the red-faced old monk abruptly moved sideways to dodge. Just as his figure had moved, a sharp sword chi barely missed his body and slashed at the ground, leaving a deep sword mark where he had just been standing. But before he even had time to catch his breath, the next moment, a skyful of sword chi fell down, crisscrossing each other, heading straight for the red-faced old monk. He just activated a spiritual artifact. Why does he still have so much spiritual power? Looking at the skyful of sword chi, the red-faced old monk's face showed a hint of despair. He had exerted all his strength earlier to resist the power emitted by the leaving fire tripod. Now, not only was he seriously injured, his protective treasure damaged, but his spiritual power was also nearly depleted, leaving him with no strength to fend off Lu Qing's storm-like sword chi assault. At the same time, he was utterly baffled. Why could Lu Qing, after activating such a powerful spiritual artifact as the leaving fire tripod, still launch such an attack as if nothing had happened? It totally defied logic. Just as the red-faced old monk was about to be dismembered by Lu Qing's sword chi. Just then, a streak of light flew from afar at an extremely fast speed, arriving before Lu Qing's sword chi and transforming into a semi-transparent golden bell, enveloping the red-faced old monk within it. Yang! Dang! Yang! Lu Qing's sword chi struck the golden bell, yet it failed to break through the defense. While the bell trembled violently under the impacts, it still couldn't be breached, leaving the red-faced old monk inside unscathed. Elder Jin Zhong. Seeing the golden bell enveloping him, the red-faced old monk showed a look of wild joy. Ha! Lu Qing also sensed something and looked up towards the distant horizon. Then he felt several powerful presences rushing toward him from deep within the mountain range at great speed. With a thought, he knew that reinforcements from Suspended Mountain had arrived. Without further entanglement, the light emanating from the golden small boat under his feet brightened, and his entire being turned into a streak of light, fleeing out of the mountain. Just as Lu Qing left, not even 10 breaths later, several figures emitting strong auras appeared in the sky. They were several old monks in gray robes, like the red-faced old monk. Thinking of escaping? The group of old monks first looked in shock and anger at the devastation below, then turned towards the direction Lu Qing had fled, intending to pursue. Elder Jin Zhong, hold on. This man cannot be pursued. Upon seeing this, the red-faced old monk was terrified and, regardless of his own injuries, immediately spurred his spiritual power and cried out loud. So excited was he that the inner organs, which had been protected by the power of a magical treasure, burst apart, spewing blood from his mouth. Seeing his extreme emotions, the other old monks, though puzzled, could only stop and land beside the red-faced old monk. Elder Qiexan, how are you? Why won't you let us chase that evil demon? Asked one of the old monks. This evil demon is mysterious, and he holds a spiritual artifact in his hand. If we rashly pursue, it's hard to say what might happen. The red-faced old monk quickly explained. A spiritual artifact. How is that possible? The other monks were immediately shocked upon hearing this. It's absolutely true. See the surrounding spiritual fires? They are emitted by that spiritual artifact. The fire is extremely powerful. Nothing can withstand it. Living creatures that touch it. Any cultivator below perfection in Foundation establishment can hardly resist and can only be burned alive. The monks looked at the flames burning around them, their expressions changing slightly. With their keen vision, how could they not recognize the terrifying nature of these spiritual fires? Another monk, with a distressed expression, asked, with such fierce fire, what about all the disciples? In their divine soul sensing, the entire mountain, apart from the red-faced old monk, showed no other signs of life. The red-faced old monk sighed. They have all perished in the sea of fire. The evil demon came too suddenly. The disciples didn't have time to scatter before they were annihilated by his spiritual artifact. It turned out that, in just this short amount of time, the disciples of Suspended Mountain who were exposed to the spiritual fire could no longer endure and were burned to death. All perished. The eyes of the old monks widened suddenly, their hearts filled with extraordinary sorrow. These were nearly half of the elite disciples sent out from their temple. Could they have all been lost just like that? Evil demon, this vendetta, if not avenged, swears us not to be human. An old monk clenched his teeth and immediately made a bitter oath. Elder Chi Xian, you confronted that evil demon. Do you know who he is and why he would be so vicious, harming our suspended mountain disciples with such cruelty? Another old monk asked. I couldn't recognize his identity, but the spiritual artifact he used I recognize. It is indeed the sect spirit artifact of the Lihua sect from the ancient immortal cultivation era, the Leaving Fire Tripod. While the red-faced old monk was sharing his conjectures with the other monks, above the skies outside the Lingshan mountain range, a faint aura, concealed within a white cloud. That mysterious ghost-faced man. Who exactly is he to be able to control a spiritual artifact? Taoist Yang Ming looked towards the direction of Lingshan, still watching the raging fire blaze with a look of utter shock in his eyes. Previously, following the trail of that golden streak, he had arrived at the edge of the Lingshan mountain range. Then he witnessed a scene that profoundly shocked him. He saw the mysterious ghost-faced man above, commanding a giant cauldron, carrying immense might, and smashing down on the largest mountain peak below. The many disciples of Suspended Mountain, under this earth-shattering attack, had no power to resist. They were like ants and moths easily obliterated. Even the majestic mountain, a symbol of the ancient Suspended Mountain, was blasted with a huge hole, burning unrestrained by the fierce fire. Feeling the power emitted by the giant cauldron, Taoist Yang Ming, who hailed from a secret land, didn't need further proof that this was indeed a genuine spiritual artifact. Suspended Mountain had actually provoked a terrifying powerhouse who possessed a spiritual artifact. Realizing this, Yang Ming's heart was both shocked and excited. Naturally, the shock was at the appearance of the spiritual artifact. However, the excitement came from seeing that his arch-nemesis had provoked such a formidable enemy. The days ahead would certainly be challenging. He also became more curious about the identity of that mysterious ghost-faced man. That was a spiritual artifact, after all. Even their Qingyang temple had only one, and because it needed to suppress the secret realm, it could not be brought out. What kind of background did this mysterious ghost-faced man have to be able to control a complete spiritual artifact? Lu Qing controlled the golden small boat, swiftly flying through the air. At the same time, he remained vigilant of what was behind him. However, even after he had flown far from the Lingshan mountain range, he noticed no one was pursuing him. He immediately understood that the opponent was apprehensive and dared not follow. He found a secluded forested area, descended, and hid himself. Then, he set up a simple array to conceal his aura. After completing all these tasks, Lu Qing finally relaxed his heart and spirit. This time his sudden attack on Suspended Mountain was indeed a bit of a gamble. Although the Leaving Fire Tripod was unparalleled in power and mostly controlled by Yen, even so, the preparation of that strike had consumed a significant amount of spiritual power. Had Suspended Mountain been prepared, it would not have been so easy for him to escape. Lu Qing did not believe that with his current level of cultivation, by activating the Leaving Fire Tripod, he could truly obliterate Suspended Mountain. Just look at that red-faced old monk, a high-level cultivator in the foundation establishment stage with strong survival capabilities, not so easily killed. Fortunately, it seemed that Suspended Mountain had not anticipated that someone would be so audacious as to directly attack their headquarters. This time, Suspended Mountain should be preoccupied for a while. Lu Qing muttered to himself softly. He didn't regret failing to kill the red-faced old monk. With the opponent severely injured like that, it would take several years to recover, if at all feasible. And even if recovery was possible, considering his age, such a severe blow to his primordial chi and foundational damage would make the chances of advancing to the Golden Core realm incredibly slim. After all, the power of a spiritual artifact was no laughing matter. An attack containing a trace of the power of laws in the spiritual fire was enough to severely damage his foundation. Thus, whether the red-faced old monk was dead or not didn't concern Lu Qing too much. With this attack, he had eliminated so many elite disciples of Suspended Mountain, enough to hurt them for a while. For the foreseeable future, Suspended Mountain would likely focus on self-preservation, lacking the energy to do anything else. This also indirectly alleviated the crisis for Jili Village and the Wei family. "Ah Qing, you're amazing!" Little Li popped out from Lu Qing's embrace, eyes gleaming with admiration as he looked up at Lu Qing. The little fella had truly been shocked earlier. He hadn't expected that the big cauldron Lu Qing usually used for concoctions could be so powerful. Just one strike had blasted a huge hole into a mountain peak, and even it felt a tremor in its heart and spirit. "It's just the magical treasure that's powerful." Lu Qing rubbed the little fella's head. "You be my protector for a bit. I need to go into seclusion to recover." This time, although it was mostly Yen leading the effort, activating the leaving fire tripod had still significantly drained Lu Qing. It was only because he practiced the 5 elements body refining technique that his spiritual power was several times more abundant than cultivators of the same level, and due to the 5 elements gourd, the purity of his spiritual power was comparable to that of someone in the foundation establishment stage. If it had been another cultivator in the Qi refinement realm, they might have been drained dry just activating the leaving fire tripod, not even capable of triggering it. "Okay," little Li obediently responded. As Lu Qing went into seclusion for cultivation, word about the attack on Suspended Mountain also began to spread. The incident at Lingshan Mountain Range was too loud to conceal from those paying attention. Who knows how many were watching over the situation at Lingshan Mountain Range. Moreover, before Lu Qing attacked, he hadn't even bothered to conceal his tracks. The scene of golden light streaking across the sky was witnessed by many spies. Even the scene of Lu Qing wielding the leaving fire tripod and bombarding Lingshan was seen by quite a few spies who had been lurking on the periphery of the mountain. Not long after Lu Qing left, the news that Lingshan Mountain Range had been attacked and Suspended Mountain had suffered heavy losses was passed around and quickly spread throughout West State within a few days. Suddenly, the entire West State was buzzing with excitement. Is it true? Did that mysterious powerhouse really dare to attack Suspended Mountain all by himself? That can't be fake. So many people saw it happen, and the great fire over at Lingshan Mountain Range hasn't even been extinguished yet. Rumor has it that Suspended Mountain suffered heavy losses this time, losing many elite disciples and elders. Is it true? It's absolutely true. You should have seen that terrifying strike by the mysterious powerhouse. It was truly fearsome. The rumors are that what the mysterious powerhouse used was a legendary immortal treasure. In one strike the ground shook and the mountains trembled, and the disciples of Suspended Mountain couldn't even escape before they were buried in the sea of fire. Immortal treasures. Was that mysterious powerhouse a legendary cultivator? It seems so. No wonder he dared to challenge Suspended Mountain. Turns out he was one of the legendary immortals. Who knows why Suspended Mountain offended such a terrifying existence? That's better. Suspended Mountain has been hidden for 10,000 years. Now with the revival of spiritual energy, they just emerged and want to dominate all of West State, forcing us to submit to them. Now with this mysterious powerhouse present, let's see how they continue to be so arrogant. Exactly, that group of greedy monks, not only do they force us to submit, they even want to seize more than half of our sect's wealth, making us offer tributes every month. That mysterious powerhouse is truly delivering justice from heaven. Well said. Suspended Mountain's heavy losses this time show that even the 4 great secret places are not invincible. This might be an opportunity for us. The attack on Suspended Mountain and their heavy losses stirred much commotion and attention across West State. But the vast majority, besides being shocked, felt a malicious pleasure and satisfaction. Chapter 583, Reactions from All Sides. The world trembles. Lu Qing controlled the golden small boat, swiftly flying through the air. At the same time, he remained vigilant of what was behind him. However, even after he had flown far from the Lingshan Mountain Range, he noticed no one was pursuing him. He immediately understood that the opponent was apprehensive and dared not follow. He found a secluded forested area, descended, and hid himself. Then, he set up a simple array to conceal his aura. After completing all these tasks, Lu Qing finally relaxed his heart and spirit. This time his sudden attack on Suspended Mountain was indeed a bit of a gamble. Although the Leaving Fire tripod was unparalleled in power and mostly controlled by Yen, even so, the preparation of that strike had consumed a significant amount of spiritual power. Had Suspended Mountain been prepared, it would not have been so easy for him to escape. Lu Qing did not believe that with his current level of cultivation, by activating the Leaving Fire tripod, he could truly obliterate Suspended Mountain. Just look at that red-faced old monk, a high-level cultivator in the Foundation establishment stage with strong survival capabilities, not so easily killed. Fortunately, it seemed that Suspended Mountain had not anticipated that someone would be so audacious as to directly attack their headquarters. This time, Suspended Mountain should be preoccupied for a while. Lu Qing muttered to himself softly. He didn't regret failing to kill the red-faced old monk. With the opponent severely injured like that, it would take several years to recover, if at all feasible. And even if recovery was possible, considering his age, such a severe blow to his primordial chi and foundational damage would make the chances of advancing to the Golden Core realm incredibly slim. After all, the power of a spiritual artifact was no laughing matter. An attack containing a trace of the power of laws in the spiritual fire was enough to severely damage his foundation. Thus, whether the red-faced old monk was dead or not didn't concern Lu Qing too much. With this attack, he had eliminated so many elite disciples of Suspended Mountain, enough to hurt them for a while. For the foreseeable future, Suspended Mountain would likely focus on self-preservation, lacking the energy to do anything else. This also indirectly alleviated the crisis for Jili Village and the Wei family. "Ah Qing, you're amazing!" Little Li popped out from Lu Qing's embrace, eyes gleaming with admiration as he looked up at Lu Qing. The little fella had truly been shocked earlier. He hadn't expected that the big cauldron Lu Qing usually used for concoctions could be so powerful. Just one strike had blasted a huge hole into a mountain peak, and even it felt a tremor in its heart and spirit. "It's just the magical treasure that's powerful." Lu Qing rubbed the little fella's head. "You be my protector for a bit. I need to go into seclusion to recover." This time, although it was mostly Yen leading the effort, activating the Leaving Fire tripod had still significantly drained Lu Qing. It was only because he practiced the 5 elements body refining technique that his spiritual power was several times more abundant than cultivators of the same level, and due to the 5 elements gourd, the purity of his spiritual power was comparable to that of someone in the Foundation establishment stage. If it had been another cultivator in the Qi refinement realm, they might have been drained dry just activating the Leaving Fire tripod, not even capable of triggering it. "Okay," little Li obediently responded. As Lu Qing went into seclusion for cultivation, word about the attack on Suspended Mountain also began to spread. The incident at Lingshan Mountain Range was too loud to conceal from those paying attention. Who knows how many were watching over the situation at Lingshan Mountain Range. Moreover, before Lu Qing attacked, he hadn't even bothered to conceal his tracks. The scene of golden light streaking across the sky was witnessed by many spies. Even the scene of Lu Qing wielding the Leaving Fire tripod and bombarding Lingshan was seen by quite a few spies who had been lurking on the periphery of the mountain. Not long after Lu Qing left, the news that Lingshan Mountain Range had been attacked and Suspended Mountain had suffered heavy losses was passed around and quickly spread throughout West State within a few days. Suddenly, the entire West State was buzzing with excitement. Is it true? Did that mysterious powerhouse really dare to attack Suspended Mountain all by himself? That can't be fake. So many people saw it happen, and the great fire over at Lingshan Mountain Range hasn't even been extinguished yet. Rumor has it that Suspended Mountain suffered heavy losses this time, losing many elite disciples and elders. Is it true? It's absolutely true. You should have seen that terrifying strike by the mysterious powerhouse. It was truly fearsome. The rumors are that what the mysterious powerhouse used was a legendary immortal treasure. In one strike the ground shook and the mountains trembled, and the disciples of Suspended Mountain couldn't even escape before they were buried in the sea of fire. Immortal treasures. Was that mysterious powerhouse a legendary cultivator? It seems so. No wonder he dared to challenge Suspended Mountain. Turns out he was one of the legendary immortals. Who knows why Suspended Mountain offended such a terrifying existence? That's better. Suspended Mountain has been hidden for 10,000 years. Now with the revival of spiritual energy, they just emerged and want to dominate all of West State, forcing us to submit to them. Now with this mysterious powerhouse present, let's see how they continue to be so arrogant. Exactly, that group of greedy monks, not only do they force us to submit, they even want to seize more than half of our sect's wealth, making us offer tributes every month. That mysterious powerhouse is truly delivering justice from heaven. Well said. Suspended Mountain's heavy losses this time show that even the 4 great secret places are not invincible. This might be an opportunity for us. The attack on Suspended Mountain and their heavy losses stirred much commotion and attention across West State. But the vast majority, besides being shocked, felt a malicious pleasure and satisfaction. Chapter 584. There wasn't a hint of pity or sorrow for Suspended Mountain. After all, no sooner had Suspended Mountain emerged than it sought to dominate West State, coercing numerous sect forces into submission with an extremely aggressive stance that brooked no resistance or rejection. The sect forces of West State were already extremely dissatisfied with this, merely capitulating due to the forced circumstances and the too great disparity in strength. Now, seeing Suspended Mountain in trouble, they were hardly likely to not take delight in its misfortune. Moreover, that mysterious strong individual clearly only targeted Suspended Mountain, not laying a finger on these newly submissive subordinate forces. For a moment, the sect forces in West State began to entertain wandering thoughts. And this was precisely the outcome Lu Qing hoped to see. As long as Suspended Mountain could not control West State, it would be very difficult to divert manpower to cross several major states and trouble Jili Village in Song State. This spiritual fire is truly terrifying. But who exactly is that mysterious attacker on Suspended Mountain? In Lingshan Mountain Range, several gigantic flying birds hovered above, their faces showing shock as they gazed at the still unextinguished flames below in the forest. In particular, seeing that huge, clearly smashed crater atop the majestic mountain peak, their hearts and spirits were greatly shaken. They found it somewhat unimaginable just what kind of terrifying force could cause such a shocking spectacle. No matter who it is, being able to wield such a force, that mysterious strong individual's cultivation is unfathomably deep. The leading young man on top of a gigantic flying bird said with a heavy expression, "Isn't it rumored that the individual used a magical treasure to cause such a devastating attack?" Magical treasures also require a certain realm and cultivation to wield. Judging by the situation below, whatever was used must be at least a treasure-level magical treasure or higher. To even activate such a magical treasure requires immense spiritual power, which gives an indication of how profound that individual's cultivation must be. I speculate that, at the very least, they are a strong person on the level of an ancestral master. It's just unknown what exactly Suspended Mountain did to provoke such an individual to stoop so low as to take action against these ordinary disciples of Suspended Mountain. The young man analyzed in a grave tone. A strong person on the level of an ancestral master. Those who heard this had even more shocked expressions. In their minds, an ancestral master was nearly invincible, and to think of another strong individual on the same level was incredibly daunting. Senior brother, should we still pay a visit to Suspended Mountain? A girl looked down at the tragic scene below and hesitantly asked. In her perception, it seemed as though the mountain range below was deserted, with no one moving about. There's no need now. Originally, I wanted to visit and inquire about that mysterious strong individual. But now it seems that the people of Suspended Mountain have likely retreated back into their secret realm. After suffering such losses, they're probably like startled birds. To visit them now would be inappropriate. Let's go back. The young man shook his head. With so many elders and disciples dead on Suspended Mountain, who knew what their current mood was? If they paid a visit, and it just happened to exacerbate the anger of the other side, knowing the past tyranny of Suspended Mountain, predicting what might happen was impossible. So, in the end, the young man decided to return to his sect. After all, they had already gathered plenty of information on this trip. The young man was the senior brother of those Cloudwater Secret Realm disciples, and naturally, no one contradicted his decision. Immediately, the group steered their gigantic flying birds and turned to leave. People from Cloudwater Secret Realm are gone, someone said in a soft voice as several gigantic flying birds passed over a small city. Looking up, Suspended Mountain has now hidden in the secret realm, tightly closed its gates. They won't find any useful information. What else could they do but leave? Another figure spoke. I really didn't expect the mighty Suspended Mountain to be forced into such a state, not even able to leave their gates. What's the origin of that mysterious strong individual? Controlling a spiritual artifact is something none of us from the 4 great secret realms can achieve. Could it be that besides us from the 4 great secret lands, there's some other mysterious force hidden in this world? At the end of the ancient immortal cultivation era, many immortal sects began to fight openly and in the shadows, killing each other in the struggle for the slots on the breaking realm ship. Not to mention those loose cultivators with primordial spirit great powers also in contention. Many cultivation sects were destroyed, and it's normal for spiritual artifacts to fall into external hands. This mysterious expert must have been blessed with destiny and obtained an ancient relic or heritage. It seems that after the changes in the world and the resurgence of spiritual energy, the changes in the external world will exceed our expectations. Just the transformation of destiny alone is profoundly unpredictable. No wonder the Palace Master wants us to enter the world. For tens of thousands of years, we, the 4 great secret places, have been hidden in secret realms, spared from the pain of the world's spiritual energy depletion. However, we likewise could not receive the destiny of the outside world. If we don't come out and accumulate destiny, I fear many opportunities will no longer come our way. Indeed, like the greatest opportunity from the journey to the holy mountain that fell into the hands of that young man. And now, another mysterious expert who controls a spiritual artifact has emerged. If we continue to hide in the secret realm, I fear it won't take long for the advantage we've built over tens of thousands of years to completely vanish. Several figures with powerful auras deeply felt that the unpredictability of the world's transformation and the return of spiritual energy were beyond their predictions. However, returning to the matter at hand, Suspended Mountain suffered such a big defeat this time that it can only shrink within its secret realm, not daring to come out. Perhaps this time they will fall behind the other 3 secret lands. One figure spoke somewhat schadenfreude. Don't be careless. Although Suspended Mountain has lost some elders and disciples this time, their foundation has never relied on these disciples. The supreme elders concealed in the secret realms are their true backbone. Now the rules of heaven and earth are not yet perfected, inconvenient for them to enter the world. But once the heaven and earth Tao sound resonates 1 or 2 more times, and the rules of heaven and earth improve further, if the supreme elders of Suspended Mountain break through their cultivation again, even that mysterious expert with the spiritual artifact will no longer pose a threat to Suspended Mountain. The first figure spoke solemnly. Senior brother is right in his teachings. The others, hearing this, suddenly no longer dared to joke. They knew Senior Brother Wang was correct. The supreme elders of Suspended Mountain are on the same level of strength as the Palace Master. They are cultivators who have achieved foundation building great success, or even perfection. Once they break through again, that will be the legendary Golden Core realm. That is a realm impossible to reach within the secret realm. After the depletion of spiritual energy, no one from the 4 great secret realms has been able to step into that realm in tens of thousands of years. No one knows just how powerful a Golden Core realm expert can be. They could only glimpse a fraction of the grandeur of Golden Core realm experts from the ancient texts left by their ancestors. Even just the description in the texts is enough to make their hearts soar with longing. It is foreseeable that if the supreme elders of Suspended Mountain achieve another breakthrough, their current difficulties will surely be resolved with ease. By then, it would be hard to say which of the 4 great secret realms is more powerful. All right, since the spectacle is over, we should also leave, said the leading figure. But Senior Brother, didn't we come here to investigate the identity of that mysterious expert? Someone asked. There's no further need for investigation, A powerful being who can control a spiritual artifact is not something we can probe into. If we forcefully investigate and irritate him, what if he comes to the northern state and does the same to our cold water palace? Do you think we can withstand it? The other figures, recalling the tragic scene they saw in the Lingshan mountain range, instantly shuddered. Indeed, if Suspended Mountain cannot withstand the attack of that mysterious expert, could their cold water palace do so? That is the might of a spiritual artifact, something even Foundation Establishment realm cultivators must avoid and dare not confront. At once, the figures hastily said, "Senior brother speaks the truth. Let's head back." And so, as time passed, the great fire in the Lingshan mountain range slowly extinguished. The disciples of Suspended Mountain disappeared as if they had vanished. The news of Suspended Mountain's attack and heavy losses no longer stayed limited to West State. It began to spread to other states, and eventually the whole world was shaken. Chapter 585 Return a Temporary Peace. It seems that Suspended Mountain has no intention of coming out for the time being. On the outskirts of the Lingshan mountain range, Lu Qing used an invisibility talisman to hide his form and murmured softly. After retreating to meditate and cultivate for several days, and fully recovering his cultivation, Lu Qing had returned to the Lingshan mountain range, planning to give Suspended Mountain a bit more deterrence. But after several days of stakeout, he didn't see any more disciples from Suspended Mountain emerge. He knew then that Suspended Mountain was determined, hiding in the secret realm without coming out again. To this, he did not feel disappointed. On the contrary, this was the effect he wanted because his goal of deterrence had been achieved. Young master, this time you might become famous all over, with your power alone, suppressing a great secret land to the extent that they dare not come out of the secret realm. Such an act, even in the ancient immortal cultivation era, has rarely occurred. The voice of Yen echoed in Lu Qing's mind. While Lu Qing was in retreat and cultivating, Yen had also recovered some primordial qi. "It's just an empty reputation, hardly worth mentioning," said Lu Qing indifferently. "Since Suspended Mountain won't come out, there's no need for us to waste any more time here. Let's go back." "Ah Qing, are we going back now?" Little Li asked. We've been out for so long. Little Yen must be missing us by now. If we don't go back, the little girl will start crying," Lu Qing said with a smile. "Little Li misses Little Yen too," Little Li said, feeling a bit homesick. It had never been separated from Little Yen for so long before. Lu Qing rubbed its head. "Then let's leave now." With that, Lu Qing gave the Lingshan mountain range one deep look, hesitated no longer, and moved silently away with his movement technique. This time he did not linger, heading straight out beyond West State. And to conceal his tracks, he didn't use the golden small boat, but instead relied on the power of talismans to travel on the ground. After all, with the enhancement of the talismans, his speed was not much slower than the golden small boat. Half a day later, Lu Qing was already out of West State. He looked back in the direction of West State. This visit to West State had been quite fruitful for him. Not only had he dealt a heavy blow to Suspended Mountain, causing them significant losses and ensuring that for some time they would be too preoccupied with their own matters to dare to come out of the secret realm lightly, but he had also obtained several treasures, especially the flying artifact, the golden small boat, which was very useful to him. Now, he would have some time to focus on cultivation in peace. After one last glance in West State's direction, a flash of azure light surrounded Lu Qing as he quickly moved forward again. Several days later, Lu Qing returned to Tsang State. The reason it took so much time was that he made a detour on purpose for the sake of caution. Upon entering Tsang State, Lu Qing no longer tread carefully and unleashed his full movement technique, and by noon, he had returned to Jili village. When Lu Qing entered the Array's range without concealing his presence, the elder doctor, who was in the Wei family's separate courtyard diagnosing Wei Zihao and the others, had a flicker of expression. "Elder Chun, is there something wrong with Hao Heir's health?" Wei Xinghe hurriedly asked, noticing the change. Mrs. Wei also showed a worried expression. "No, Wei family master need not worry. The state of the children's health is improving very well. With further care for another 10 days to half a month, They should be able to fully recover, the elder doctor said, withdrawing his hand from taking the pulse and smiling. That's wonderful. Mrs. Wei relaxed greatly and patted her chest in relief. In the recent days, each time she saw the 2 locks of white hair at her eldest son's temples, she couldn't help but feel heartache. Fortunately, under the prescription and care provided by the elder doctor, the white hair had gradually started to darken. Many thanks, Elder Chen, Wei Zihao said as he stood up and bowed to the elder doctor. Several other disciples of Qingyun Sword Pavilion also bowed and thanked me. There's no need for such formalities. Remember, for these recent days, you should prioritize recuperating and avoid engaging in combat, the elder doctor instructed. We will heed the senior's teaching. Wei Zihao and the others responded respectfully. Good. Later, I will leave a prescription for a medicinal diet for you to follow. If taken as directed, you should recover even faster, the elder doctor said, and then left the Wei family's separate residence. Upon returning to the half-mountain small courtyard, he saw little Yen cuddling with Lu Qing and acting coyly. Brother, little Li, why were you gone for so long this time? Little Yen was so bored at home. Brother is at fault. I won't leave for so long next time. Lu Qing comforted the little one as he held her. Seeing this, the elder doctor showed a smile and walked into the courtyard. Master! Lu Qing put down little Yen and greeted him seriously. When he had entered, he had deliberately not concealed his aura, knowing that his master would surely sense his return. You're back now, that's good. Nothing went wrong, did it? The elder doctor asked. Nothing. It was a safe journey. The elder doctor nodded but did not ask in detail about what exactly Lu Qing had been doing on his trip, because he knew that if Lu Qing could speak of it, he would do so on his own. Sure enough, Lu Qing soon volunteered. Master, this disciple went to West State this time and resolved some matters. I believe we should be able to enjoy a peaceful period in the upcoming days. Lu Qing roughly explained the events of his trip to West State. The incident that had occurred in West State had almost become widespread knowledge, and although Tsang State was somewhat remote and the news slower, it wasn't long before they would receive word. His use of the leaving fire tripod to strike at the suspended mountain might be a mystery to others, but his master and Wei Shanhai would surely guess who was responsible upon hearing of it. Therefore, Lu Qing had no intention of hiding anything. The elder doctor, upon hearing this, was both shocked and relieved. Ah Qing, you've taken quite the risk this time. That suspended mountain has been able to endure for tens of thousands of years and is certainly out of the ordinary. Had they set an ambush in advance, even with a spiritual artifact to protect your body, it might not have been easy to escape. Disciple acknowledges the risk this time. However, the emergence of Suspended Mountain is not good news for us. The Wujin building assassin who escaped from Wei Mansion is still a hidden danger. I even suspect that he may have already discovered our location. Therefore, I could not allow Suspended Mountain to easily take control of West State. For once they are free to act, we may be the ones facing trouble, the disciple said. The elder doctor thought of the assassin who had escaped from him and fell silent. He knew Lu Qing's concerns were not unfounded. It was just the risk of his disciple's trip to West State that had left him feeling apprehensive. Be that as it may, you've returned safely, and that's what matters. However, I do hope that you will be less reckless in the future, the elder doctor said. This disciple will remember, Lu Qing responded earnestly, knowing his master was worried about him. No one knew of Lu Qing's return. Even Wei Shanhai only learned that Lu Qing had returned the next day when he came to have tea with the elder doctor. However, he assumed that Lu Qing had simply gone into seclusion for cultivation and didn't think more of it. It wasn't until a few days later that news of the events in West State finally started trickling into Tsang State. Wei Shanhai and Wei Xinghe, upon hearing rumors gathered by their spy, especially about the mysterious figure commanding a giant cauldron obliterating numerous disciples and elders of Suspended Mountain, were shocked, and their faces showed a mix of astonishment and disbelief. After the spy had left, Wei Xinghe couldn't wait to say, "Ancestor, this giant cauldron mentioned in the rumors, could it be?" Wei Shanhai looked towards the half-mountain small courtyard. It seems that young Master Lu's disappearance during this time was not for closed-door cultivation, but rather to achieve an earth-shattering feat. Chapter 586. Qi Cultivation Perfection, Elder Doctor's Breakthrough. In the early morning, Lu Qing was sitting cross-legged in the bamboo forest behind the Lu family home. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth was gradually being pulled by him, thread by thread, absorbed into his body. Time flies, and it had been a month since Lu Qing returned from West State. During this month, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth continued to increase. In Jili Village, thanks to the gathering and conditioning by the array, the density of the spiritual energy had even reached the level Lu Qing initially felt in Central State. Of course, so much time had passed, and the spiritual energy in Central State must have become much richer than when Lu Qing and the others had left. But no matter what, the spiritual energy in Jili Village now sufficed for both his and his master's cultivation. As Lu Qing cultivated, the spiritual energy swirling around him grew denser. Eventually, it even showed signs of condensing into mist. Suddenly, Lu Qing's body shook, and he absorbed all the rich spiritual energy surrounding him. Following that, a sense of perfection emerged from his body. Congratulations, young master, on reaching the realm of Qi cultivation perfection. Yan materialized beside Lu Qing, congratulating him. At the same time, she marveled inwardly at the speed of Lu Qing's cultivation. It hadn't been long since his last breakthrough to Qi refining great success, and now he had made another breakthrough, reaching the realm of Qi cultivation perfection, just a step away from the foundation establishment stage. If it wasn't said, no one would dare believe that what Lu Qing was practicing was the 5 elements body refining technique from the ancient immortal cultivation era, known for its slow progression. The progress is still slow. Lu Qing shook his head and said, Yan. Lu Qing perceived Yan's silence, but he did not offer any more explanations. He understood what Yan meant. Compared to an ordinary cultivator, his cultivation pace indeed was very fast. With his solid foundation and the enhancement from his life-bound magical treasure, the 5 elements gourd, even practicing the 5 elements body refining technique, couldn't hinder the speed of his cultivation. However, Lu Qing's goal had never been to compare himself with cultivators of the same level. More than a month had passed since the last Heaven and Earth Dao sound. The evolution of Heaven and Earth's rules was also gradually reaching a new limit. Lu Qing estimated that it wouldn't be long before the 5th Heaven and Earth Dao sound would ring out. Based on the previous experiences, with every sound of the Heaven and Earth Dao sound, the Heaven and Earth rules would become more perfect. The beings they could accommodate would also grow stronger. The current Heaven and Earth rules allowed cultivators to practice up to the foundation establishment realm. After the next Heaven and Earth Dao sound, it was very likely that the rules would evolve to accommodate the emergence of Golden Core realm powerhouses. By then, whoever could break through first would greatly influence the world's power structure. Lu Qing didn't expect to be the very first to step into the Golden Core realm. That would be unrealistic. But he must ensure that he had the confidence to face a Golden Core realm cultivator at that time. And clearly, this was not something that could be achieved at the Qi cultivation realm. He needed a qualitative breakthrough as well. Hopefully this 5th Heaven and Earth Dao sound can come later. Now at Qi cultivation perfection and with his superpower, Lu Qing hardly faced any confusion regarding his realm. He just needed a little more time to be ready to step into the foundation establishment stage. He had a premonition that after this 5th Heaven and Earth Dao sound, there would be a significant change in the world. Not to mention other actions, Suspended Mountain was sure to stir. So he needed enough strength to deal with the coming changes. As Lu Qing was pondering in his heart, suddenly, he sensed a fluctuation. He looked excitedly towards the direction of Half Mountain's small courtyard. Has Master broken through? A few days ago, Master mentioned he would enter closed-door cultivation for a few days. Lu Qing didn't expect it to be so quick. Lu Qing felt a gentle breeze around him, and in the next moment, he had disappeared into the bamboo forest. Soon after, he arrived at the Half Mountain small courtyard. Brother, you're back. Little Yan, who had just finished practicing the Qi eating skill in the courtyard, greeted Lu Qing happily upon his return. After over a month of cultivation, the little fellow had attained a profound level of proficiency with the qi-eating skill. Her spiritual power was abundant within her, and her accumulation in the qi-refining realm was substantial. She was not far from reaching the minor success realm of qi refining. After all, little Yan's talent for cultivation was extraordinarily remarkable. According to Yan, even in the ancient immortal cultivation era, she would have been considered a rare genius, on par with the core true disciples of top-tier cultivation sects. Aha! Lu Qing patted the little one's head and looked toward the house. He could sense that his master was still inside the quiet room, presumably experiencing the changes after his breakthrough. Therefore, he did not enter to disturb him but stood quietly in the courtyard, waiting. After a while, there was a sound of a door opening from inside the house, and soon, the figure of the elder doctor appeared at the doorway. "Grandpa Chun, you've finished your retreat," little Yen shouted cheerfully. "Heh, I've just finished my retreat." The elder doctor stroked his beard with a big smile on his face, clearly in an excellent mood. "Congratulations, master." On entering the foundation establishment realm, Lu Qing also offered his congratulations happily. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel astonished once again. The talent of his master's cultivation was simply too exaggerated. He had been baptized by the heavenly tribulation and had a robust foundation crafted from the origin energy of 9 worlds. Additionally, with the assistance of the life-bound magical treasure like the 5 elements gourd, it made sense for his cultivation speed to be uncommon among ordinary people. But Master didn't have as many fortuitous encounters as he did, yet his cultivation speed was not much slower, reaching the stage of Qi cultivation perfection early on. Now, he had even broken through the barrier and stepped into the foundation establishment realm. Such progress in cultivation was astonishing. Even Yen couldn't help but exclaim in Lu Qing's mind, "Young master, your master's perception is indeed rare in this world. It seems I can't hide anything from you, Ah Qing," the elder doctor said with a laugh. "Some days ago I was adjusting the bodies of Zihao and the others. From the unusual runes in their bodies, I gleaned some insights into the mysterious operation of vitality qi in the human body. With the intuitive realization, I managed to break through some of the mysterious aspects of foundation establishment. I had only planned to retreat for a few days to organize my findings, but I did not expect to break through directly. Master's talent for cultivation is truly admirable," Lu Qing sighed. He also felt surprised. He naturally knew what the runes his master mentioned were about. They were the rune marks planted by demon cultivators within the bodies of Wei Zihao and others, belonging to demon Dao techniques. That his master could obtain inspiration from them and discern the mysteries of foundation establishment, achieving a breakthrough in his realm, was beyond imagination. "Don't flatter an old man," the elder doctor retorted with a laugh and a mock scold. When it came to talent for cultivation, who could compare with his own disciple? As the master and disciple exchanged praise, Lu Qing suddenly felt a stir in his heart. He sensed a breath lingering outside Jili village. And that breath, he was quite familiar with it. Lu Qing smiled. "Master, it seems we have a visitor." Chapter 587. Ji Rui visits. Changes in the central state situation. "Is there a guest arriving?" The elder doctor first blinked in surprise. Still immersed in the joy of his breakthrough, he hadn't noticed any stirrings outside the village. Hearing this, he released his heart and spirit to sense the surroundings and, upon detecting the presence, a smile likewise appeared on his face. "Indeed, it seems a distinguished guest has arrived." At the entrance of Jili village, a young man stood, astonished as he took in the sight before him. He could hardly believe this was the village he had visited twice before. Mist shrouded the area, filled with rich spiritual energy and bursting with life. Even the large tree at the entrance of the village had changed immensely, seeming to possess some extraordinary quality. He vaguely felt an invisible force protecting the village. Had he not been sure he was in the right place, he might have doubted if he had stumbled upon an immortal's blessed land. Precisely because he sensed an invisible force guarding the village, the young man did not enter directly as he did in the past, but rather waited quietly at the entrance. For he knew, with the abilities of those two individuals, they would likely notice his arrival very soon. And sure enough, before the young man had finished admiring the large tree emanating a bizarre aura, he heard a hearty laugh. "It's always a joy to have friends come from afar, Mr. Jirue. I didn't expect you'd find time to visit our remote little village." As the thick mist dispersed, Lu Qing and the elder doctor emerged from within. Indeed, the young man at the entrance was none other than a disciple of Tianji Building, Lin Jirue. "Young Master Lu, Elder Chun, it's been a while. I've come again to seek 2 cups of plum tea." Lin Jirue greeted Lu Qing and the elder doctor with a smile on his face. "Heh, it's easy for Jirue to have tea. Please come in," the elder doctor chuckled. Soon, the 3 of them returned to the half-mountain small courtyard. "Brother Jirue." Little Yen greeted Lin Jirue dutifully upon seeing him. "It's been a while, Little Yen. You've grown more beautiful, huh?" Lin Jirue was equally delighted to see Little Yen. But when he sensed the aura emanating from Little Yen, his gaze suddenly became filled with surprise and uncertainty. "Young Master Lu, could it be my illusion? How do I feel that Little Yen seems?" Facing Lin Jirue's gaze, Lu Qing smiled and nodded slightly. Little Yen recently made progress in qi cultivation and, fortunately, had a breakthrough to the innate realm. Hiss! Lin Jirue couldn't help but draw a sharp breath, shocked as he looked at Little Yen. The innate realm, that realm so many martial artists dream of and strive for day and night, difficult to attain. And now it had been breached by a little girl? He remembered Little Yen is only about 7 or 8 years old now. Under 10 years old and already in the innate realm, Lin Jirue found it hard to convey just how astonished he truly was. "Mr. Jirue, don't be mistaken, Little Yan's cultivation technique is quite unique, making advances to the innate realm relatively simpler. But now, despite her realm, her true strength is far less than that of others in the innate realm," Lu Qing explained upon seeing the shock on Lin Jirue's face. "But this is still the innate realm." Lin Jirue took a deep breath to compose himself. To Lu Qing saying Little Yan's strength wasn't strong, he didn't think much of it. After all, could one really expect a little girl to fight life-and-death battles? The most critical aspect of the innate realm was that it allowed for one's physical body and divine soul to undergo a transformation, greatly increasing one's lifespan. As for strength, having reached the innate realm, one could always strengthen with time. Having innate true qi, one couldn't be too bad no matter what. Not to mention, there were the teachings of 2 great masters, Lu Qing and the elder doctor. It was predictable that Little Yan's future achievements in cultivation would certainly be boundless. Thinking of this, Lin Jirue shifted his focus back to Lu Qing and the elder doctor. However, just like when he was in Central State, he still couldn't discern the true strength of Lu Qing and the elder doctor. He knew that, during this period, even though his cultivation had improved, he was still far from being their match. He remembered hearing about an event in West State about a month ago. His heart felt even more inexplicable. He didn't know if his guess was truly correct. After this small interlude, the group finally took their seats in the courtyard. The elder doctor began to brew plum tea. "Mr. Jirue, what brings you to Tsang State?" Lu Qing asked. He was a bit surprised. Central State was the center of this world, and now that the heaven and earth Tao sound had sounded for the 4th time, the spiritual energy there must be even richer, making it a sacred place for cultivators to flock to for cultivation. Why had Lin Jirue left at this time? Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Lin Jirue let out a sigh. "I'm not going to hide it from you too. My visit this time is actually to seek refuge." Lu Qing was shocked. "Refuge? Could your sect?" "Young Master Lu, don't misunderstand. There's nothing wrong with Tianji Building, but Central State is now in utter chaos. To avoid attention, I decided to travel," Lin Jirue quickly explained. "I see." Lu Qing breathed a sigh of relief. He had quite a favorable impression of Tianji Building and didn't want to see anything happen to the sect. However, "Mr. Jirue, Is the situation in Central State very chaotic now? It's extremely chaotic, Lin Jirue sighed. You too might not know, but since you left, the spiritual energy in Central State has been continuously increasing. In succession, there have been deep-rooted innate realm experts who have grasped the mysteries and comprehended the secrets of refining spirit energy, successfully cultivating spiritual power. That alone wouldn't have thrown Central State into chaos. After all, those who have just grasped the secrets of refining spiritual energy are focused on cultivation, striving to advance further and don't have time for other matters. However, not long ago, the heaven and earth Tao sound rang again. Not only did it enhance the spiritual energy in Central State even more, but some renowned mountains and rivers and secluded places also experienced strange changes. There, heavenly materials and earthly treasures appeared, and some people even discovered traces of ancient cave mansions. Once this news got out, the whole of Central State immediately fell into chaos. Now, the affairs of the ancient immortal cultivation era are no longer a secret. Most of the sect forces in Central State are aware of it, knowing that in ancient times, there was a way of immortal cultivation. The emergence of ancient cave mansions now further proves this. Thinking of the possibility of possessing cultivation methods and immortal treasures within these mansions. How could the major sect forces of Central State stay calm? They immediately sent disciples to contend for them, and even those innate realm experts who had comprehended the secrets of spiritual energy and cultivated spiritual power couldn't sit still. They came out of seclusion, wanting to search and seize opportunities. Now, Central State has already experienced numerous sect battles over the mansion opportunities. Some sects have even banded together, forming alliances to jointly divide the mansion opportunities within their power, preventing invasion by other forces. Our Tianji building was also persuaded by many sects, and even my master has been troubled by this. In the end, he simply sent us to travel and temporarily avoid the turmoil. Lin Jirue spoke calmly, detailing the recent events in Central State one by one. Chapter 588. Stay, Lin Jirue's surprise. I had no idea that so much had happened on the side of Central State. Lu Qing sighed with some surprise. Central State was too far from Tsang State, and being in a remote corner, even the Wei family had difficulty establishing a foothold there. Naturally, information from that side was delayed. But, has Holy Mountain really done nothing? Lu Qing knew that the purpose of Holy Mountain was to maintain peace across the various states as much as possible. Logically speaking, with such a significant incident happening in Central State, Holy Mountain shouldn't be indifferent. With the cultivation of those 3 Saint Masters, they also had the power to stop the chaos. That is exactly what confuses me. With Central State in such turmoil, Holy Mountain has not taken any action. The 3 Saint Masters haven't shown themselves either, and even when my mentor sought an audience on the mountain, he couldn't meet with the Saint Masters. Because of this, my mentor sensed something unusual and strictly ordered us of Tianji building not to get involved in the conflicts between the major sects lightly. He has even dispersed us to travel through the outside states, to avoid drawing attention for the time being. Holy Mountain has made no move? Lu Qing was slightly taken aback. But he immediately thought of the information he had gleaned during his battle with the puppet Dharma body of the 3rd Saint. The true body of the 3rd Saint was at the Foundation Establishment Perfect Realm. The other 2 saints were probably at the same level. Now that the sound of heaven and earth Tao had already reached the 4th echo, it wouldn't be long before it sounded again. Were those 3 saints masters engrossed in comprehending the rules of heaven and earth, waiting for the day when it would evolve to allow them to break through, which is why they couldn't attend to the turmoil in Central State. Lu Qing pondered for a moment and felt this was very likely. To those in cultivation, the most important thing is the breakthrough in one's cultivation realm. Everyone has selfish motives, and even if the 3 Saint Masters truly cared for the world, faced with such a God-sent opportunity, they would likely prioritize breaking through. Of course, these were just Lu Qing's speculations, so he didn't voice them out. Instead, he smiled and said, "In that case, if Mr. Jirue doesn't mind, why not stay with us for a while? Although our place is small, the scenery is pleasant, and it's an excellent place for cultivating one's heart and temperament. Young Master Lu is too polite. I must admit when I arrived, I almost thought I had gone to the wrong place. It has been a while since I've been here, and the changes in Jili Village are too great. Lin Jirue observed his surroundings. Having sat in the courtyard for a while, he increasingly felt the village's extraordinary aspects. It wasn't just that the spiritual energy was rich. The earth energy underfoot was also very harmonious, and in the surrounding space there was a sense of vitality qi drifting about. Living here for a long time, even those who don't cultivate would likely live longer, free from illness and pain. It's just that the spiritual energy is a bit more abundant, which is nothing compared to the famous mountains and rivers of Central State. Lu Qing modestly said, "That's all right. If Mr. Ji Rue has nowhere else to go, it would be good to settle down here for the time being. I don't dare to overstate, but I can at least ensure enough plum tea." The elder doctor had just finished brewing the plum tea and handed over a cup to Lin Jirue. Seeing both teacher and disciple urging him to stay, Lin Jirue felt somewhat tempted. After pondering for a moment, he smiled and nodded. "It would be rude to intrude, but I will be thick-faced and trouble you both." With that, he picked up the cup of tea and took a sip. Then, the next moment, his eyes widened in surprise as he looked at the teacup in his hand. "This tea, Mr. Jirue has noticed?" the elder doctor asked with a smile on his face. "This plum tea seems to contain spiritual charm, which can aid in cultivation?" Lin Jirue ventured uncertainly. He had just taken a sip of tea when he noticed that the transformation of spiritual power within his body had sped up a bit. Indeed, it had been a long time since he had parted ways with Lu Qing and the others. Not long ago, Lin Jirue had also grasped the secret of refining spirit energy and had begun to gradually transform his true qi into spiritual power. With the changes in heaven and earth, and the recovery of spiritual energy, this plum tree in the yard seems to have also undergone some changes. I see that you, Jirue, seem to be transforming the true qi within your body into spiritual power. This plum tea might be able to help you accelerate this process. The elder doctor laughed. With his current realm, he could naturally see the condition inside Lin Jirue at a glance. It seems that after the recovery of spiritual energy, the world has more and more spiritual materials. Lin Jirue looked up at the plum tree above his head and found that it had indeed undergone some changes. Not only had it become more robust, but it also harbored a peculiar will that was somewhat inscrutable to him. He came to realize that this plum tree was probably the legendary spirit tree. Thus, under the persuasion of Lu Qing and the elder doctor, Lin Jirue decided to stay in Jili Village for the time being. At noon, when people like Wei Shanhai learned of this, they also came to pay their respects to Lin Jirue. Back then, when Wang Tsongi led his disciples to besiege the Wei family, it was a crucial moment, and it was Lin Jirue who stepped forward to intervene. It was also Lin Jirue who later came to Jili Village to relay information, which led the elder doctor and the others to decide to head to the county, eventually resolving the Wei family's crisis. This gratitude Wei Shanhai and the others had always remembered. Now that they heard Lin Jirue had come to Jili Village, how could they not come to pay him a visit? Especially after hearing that Lin Jirue would be staying for a while, they immediately expressed their intentions to help arrange everything properly for him. "Young Master Lu, what are you doing?" Early the next day, Lin Jirue saw Lu Qing casting spells to irrigate the spirit field and couldn't help but ask, especially upon seeing the spell-formed spirit cloud that Lu Qing had condensed, floating above the spirit field. He was incredibly surprised. "I'm watering the spirit field. If the spirit grain is to grow well, watering is essential. Moreover, it must be watered with spirit rain, as ordinary rainwater has little effect," Lu Qing explained with a smile, without any concealment. "Is this a spirit field? And the crops inside are the spirit rice we ate yesterday?" Lin Jirue looked in astonishment at the verdant rice seedlings growing vigorously in the spirit field. Recalling the delicious spirit rice they had eaten the previous night, which also nourished the body and increased cultivation. "Indeed, this is the second batch of spirit grain I've planted, but it will take another 2 months before it can be harvested." Lu Qing's hand movements changed slightly, and the spell-formed cloud floating above the spirit field began to slowly move. After shifting to another corner of the field, it started to drizzle spirit rain. This scene made Lin Jirue utterly fascinated. Although the spiritual energy had recovered nowadays and the presence of immortal cultivation was no longer a secret, most of the powerful beings in the world were still stuck in the process of refining spirit energy, converting their true qi into spiritual power. Apart from the 4 great secret places, even the top sects in Central State were still in the exploratory stage regarding the path of immortal cultivation. Even though Lin Jirue was a core true disciple of Tianji Building, with extensive knowledge and aware of many of the world's secrets, it was the first time he had personally witnessed the existence of spells. Watching Lu Qing cast spells with ease, irrigating the spirit field, and considering everything he had seen since his arrival in Jili Village yesterday, Lin Jirue truly felt the existence of immortal cultivation. Chapter 589. Otherworldly Visitor, Pure Lotus. Lin Jirue watched as Lu Qing controlled the cloud of spells, drenching the entire spirit field in it. With a wave of his spell, the magical cloud dispersed, bringing a cool, refreshing feeling that rushed to his face. Young Master Lu, the spell you used, could it possibly be the legendary immortal spell? Lin Jirue finally couldn't help but ask. It's not quite immortal level, just a very simple spirit rain technique, Lu Qing explained with a smile. Spirit rain technique? Correct, this is a basic water element spell called the Small Cloud Rain skill. It's not difficult to learn. If Mr. Jirue is interested, once you've transformed your innate true qi into spiritual power, I can teach it to you, said Lu Qing generously. Basic spell. Lin Jirue keenly picked up on another term. It seems, Mr. Jirue, that you aren't very familiar with the path of immortal cultivation. Young Master Lu is joking. In this world, apart from the 4 great secret places and the Holy Mountain, which sect force would dare claim they fully understand the path of immortal cultivation? Saying this, Lin Jirue subtly glanced at Lu Qing. That's right, including the one standing before him. Truly, for the 4 great secret places and the Holy Mountain to understand the path of immortal cultivation was only natural. After all, these major forces have a long history, especially the 4 great secret places, having tens of thousands of years of fearsome inheritance. But Lu Qing's background, within their Tianji building, wasn't a secret. Originally just a village youth, and even though his mentor, the elder doctor, was just a somewhat capable traveling doctor. Yet now Lu Qing stood at the pinnacle of the world. Not only was he powerful, but he also mastered many secret techniques, and it seemed he was extremely knowledgeable about immortal cultivation. He had even stepped onto the proper path of immortal cultivation, becoming a true cultivator. It was truly baffling where Lu Qing had acquired his immortal cultivation inheritance. The path of immortal cultivation divides into multiple schools, including talisman cultivators, magic cultivators, body cultivators. Seeing this, Lu Qing simply started explaining some basic knowledge about immortal cultivation to Lin Jirue. Lin Jirue, hearing this, suddenly became spirited and listened attentively. Today, aside from the 4 great secret places and the Holy Mountain, the vast majority of sect forces still have only a superficial understanding of immortal cultivation. For Lu Qing to share this hidden knowledge was indeed a rare opportunity. While Lin Jirue was excitedly listening to Lu Qing's introduction to the basics of immortal cultivation, far above the endless sky, beyond the layers of celestial gales and the boundary membrane, lies that vast expanse of starry space. In that space, desolation prevails, with only distant starlight and the massive pitch-black meteors floating and drifting. Almost nothing else. Only the world where Lu Qing and others were located emitted a faint halo, inconspicuous in the starry space. Suddenly, not far from the world where Lu Qing was, on a gigantic, uninhabitable meteor void of any sign of life and spanning several hundred miles in diameter, a distortion of space occurred. Immediately after, a somewhat battered silver flying boat appeared out of nowhere and landed on the meteor. After a while, 2 figures, somewhat depleted, emerged from the flying boat. One of them reached out, and the silver flying boat quickly shrank and fell into his hand. "Senior brother, we're lucky to have your void flying boat. Otherwise, we definitely couldn't have escaped from those people from the Heavenly Tao Alliance," said a white-robed youth, very relieved. "To think we would encounter the Sword One of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Truly, as a core true disciple of the Heavenly Tao Alliance, his mastery of the Sword Tao is extraordinary, able to injure both of us with a single strike. A top-grade golden core is indeed exceptional." Another man clad in a gray robe said with lingering fear. On his chest was a sword wound, blood staining his clothes. "Heh, what about Sword One?" He laughed heartily. "No matter how formidable he is, this time he still has to drink the water we washed our feet in. Not only did we intercept the treasure he was about to obtain, but we also managed to escape right in front of them. Elder brother, did you see the faces of those Heavenly Tao Alliance disciples at that time? They looked absolutely terrible." The white-robed youth laughed in agreement, his face filled with smugness. "Right, the treasure." The man in the gray robe pulled a jade box from his storage bag at his waist, opened it, and a strange fragrance wafted out, revealing a crystal-like lotus lying inside. Both of them smelled the fragrance, feeling their minds clear. Not only did the wounds inflicted by the Heavenly Tao Alliance core true disciple, Sword One, improve noticeably, but even their divine soul power had increased slightly. "Pure lotus," the white-robed youth murmured while looking at the lotus in the jade box. "I never thought those Heavenly Tao Alliance disciples could find such heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Legend has it that this object contains the power of laws, and by consuming just one petal, one's mental clarity and divine soul power can temporarily increase tenfold. It ranks 30th among the spirit objects on the exotic treasure list." The man in the gray robe also looked somewhat enchanted at the crystal lotus. Such a spiritual object, even primordial spirit great powers would be moved by it. They never expected it would end up in their hands. One can only imagine how frustrated those Heavenly Tao Alliance disciples must be after losing such an opportunity. However, being a golden core realm powerhouse, the gray-robed man quickly regained his composure. He closed the jade box and stored it back in the storage bag. It would be too wasteful to consume the pure lotus directly. The best use for it is to take it back to our sect and ask the elders of the Elixir Hall to refine it into purifying spirit pills. They are some of the best auxiliary elixirs in the golden core realm. Not only can they enhance one's understanding, but they can also help us purify the golden core and elevate its grade. With an entire pure lotus, we can refine quite a few purifying spirit pills. In time, we can gradually refine our golden cores to mid-grade, and maybe even top-grade is not impossible. The white-robed youth nodded in agreement upon hearing this. His heart was also extremely excited. Originally, based on their foundations, it was extremely difficult to elevate the grade of their golden cores to mid-grade, let alone top-grade. But now, with this pure lotus, they had that slim chance. It's known that with a golden core 9 revolutions, a low-grade golden core can only be cultivated up to the 3rd transition. A mid-grade golden core can reach the 6th transition. Only a top-grade golden core can break the limit and attain the realm beyond the 7th transition. More importantly, in the cultivation world, there is an acknowledged ironclad rule. That is, only those with a top-grade golden core have the potential to break through to the primordial spirit realm. Any other grade attempting to force a breakthrough, dreaming of entering the primordial spirit realm, would end up with their golden core exploding and dying, without a second outcome. Originally, the two brothers who were mediocre in the golden core realm, their greatest aspiration in this life was to elevate their golden core to mid-grade and step into the 4th transition. Now, however, they saw hope for advancing to a top-grade golden core. How could they not be excited? Those Heavenly Tao Alliance disciples truly gifted them a tremendous opportunity. By the way, elder brother, where have we ended up? It took a while before the two brothers managed to calm their emotions, and they began to look around to assess their surroundings. Chapter 590. Small World, Starry Sky Coordinates. "I'm not sure," the white-robed youth said urgently. At that time the situation was dire, and Sword One's Sword Tao divine power was overwhelming. I could only fully activate the void-flying boat to escape the secret realm, without any time to recognize the direction or know where the void ship has taken us. The gray-robed man explained, while releasing his heart and spirit to survey the surroundings of himself and his brother. It was during an exploration of the mysterious land that he had obtained the strange magical treasure that was the void ship. Because it was too mysterious, he had yet to fully master it. He was also unsure of their current location. It seems we are now on a desolate small meteor. After sensing with his heart and spirit for a while, the gray-robed man figured out their surroundings. Upon hearing this, the white-robed youth soared into the air, flying above the meteor to check the surrounding starry sky coordinates to determine their location. However, after a while, he found the starry sky to be unfamiliar and seemingly not within the star maps recorded by the sect. Where on earth has the void ship taken us? The white-robed youth flew around the meteor below their feet, and when he came to the backside of the meteor, his eyes suddenly narrowed, fixating intently ahead. After some time, his eyes gradually revealed a look of ecstasy. "Senior brother, come quickly!" he shouted to his brother through divine soul transmission. "What is it, junior brother? What have you found?" The gray-robed man flew over as well. The white-robed youth pointed ahead. "Senior brother, look in front." Following the direction of his finger, the gray-robed man was equally taken aback. "Is that a small world?" "No, it's a rejuvenating micro-world." The gray-robed man's cultivation was a level higher than his junior brother's, and he quickly discerned the state of the small world in front of them, which was radiating a faint light. It was indeed a micro-world in a state of recovery. Realizing this, the gray-robed man's face also showed an expression of ecstatic joy. "Senior brother, according to the sect's records, to maintain its operation, a small world spiritual energy will come into existence and perish once every few tens of thousands of years. The small world in front of us has clearly undergone a cycle of spiritual energy birth and dissolution and is now in the midst of a spiritual energy recovery. Our luck is indeed too good. You're right, first the pure lotus and now a rejuvenating small world. Could it be that our luck has finally turned, and fortune is upon us, brother?" The gray-robed man nodded wholeheartedly. Today their luck was defying the heavens. The value of both the pure lotus and the currently rejuvenating small world was immeasurable. And now they had stumbled upon both, having snatched the pure lotus from the hands of many disciples of the Heavenly Tao Alliance under perilous circumstances. This made him wonder if his fortunes had truly changed. "Senior brother, a rejuvenating small world is too valuable. Shouldn't we notify the sect?" the white-robed youth asked. "The sect will definitely be notified, but not now," the gray-robed man said. "At least not until we have scoured the place first. Then we can notify the sect." The value of a small world was immense, certainly not something they as brothers could fully take advantage of. Leaving it to the sect to exploit would maximize its value. But before that, they could scour the place themselves. After all, they were the ones who had discovered this small world, and even if the sect came to know, they would not be blamed. "Senior brother is right. Let's do as you say." The white-robed youth actually did not wish to notify the sect so soon either, and readily agreed. "I notice that the power emanating from the small world ahead seems to have just started rejuvenating. Its heaven and earth rules have not yet evolved to perfection. But this is actually a good thing for us. The rules not being fully evolved indicates that no true power has yet been born within. As we get in, no one will be able to stop us, brothers," he said. "Then, brother, shall we go in now?" the white-robed youth said excitedly. "No need to rush, although just a small world lies ahead. It's not easy to break through the world's membrane and sneak in. We are both injured. We must wait until we've healed before you and I can jointly activate the void ship. Only then can we hope to succeed. Moreover, the rules within this small world are not yet fully evolved, which is a good thing for us. However, it being too weak is also a problem. It will restrict our power, and many opportunities have not yet emerged. It's best to wait for it to revive a bit more until it can accommodate the Golden Core realm. That will be the best opportunity for us to enter." The gray-robed man was not at all impatient. Instead, he waved his hand. He had read the records in the sect and knew much about the revival of small worlds. He knew that such things could not be rushed. Only by seizing the right moment could one obtain the greatest benefits. "I will follow brother's lead," the white-robed youth said without objection. He knew his brother was more experienced and knowledgeable and that following his lead would not be wrong. "Good. Then let's first heal our wounds. Meanwhile, let's use this time to survey this star space and determine its location, to see if we can make contact with the sect." The gray-robed man descended on the meteor below. With a flip of his hand, he took a spirit stone from his storage bag and started to extract the spiritual energy, beginning to heal and recover. Seeing this, the white-robed youth similarly landed, took out a spirit stone, sat down cross-legged, and started to heal. The desolate, unnamed meteor regained its calm once again. Only 2 powerful and steady breaths ebbed and flowed slowly. Of course, Lu Qing, above whose head the starry sky stretched unknowably far, was entirely ignorant of these matters. He had just simply explained some common knowledge of the way of immortal cultivation to Lin Jirue. The latter was listening with a face full of longing. The path of immortal cultivation is indeed vast and profound. It's hard to imagine that just the divisions of the cultivation paths you mentioned, young Master Lu, are enough to make one yearn, he said. Mr. Jirue, the transformation of your innate true qi is already 70 to 80% complete, and it's not far from a full conversion to spiritual power. You could now consider which path you want to follow in the future, Lu Qing explained. The path I want to follow in the future? Lin Jirue pondered. He knew that Lu Qing's advice definitely carried deep meaning, but he had never given much thought to his own cultivation path. After all, although Tianji Building was known for knowing the affairs of the world, it still lacked much information about the path of immortal cultivation. At least, the various common knowledge of cultivation that Lu Qing had just spoken of were almost unrecorded in the scrolls of Tianji Building. Lin Jirue managed to comprehend the mysteries of spiritual energy and slowly transform his true qi into spiritual power, thanks to the several ancient energy refining methods previously released by the Holy Mountain. But as to which path to take after cultivating spiritual power, he had no idea. Now, upon hearing Lu Qing's description of the numerous paths of immortal cultivation, Lin Jirue felt enlightened and couldn't help but ponder which path he would like to take. Seeing Lin Jirue lost in deep thought, Lu Qing smiled slightly. He didn't disturb him but left him to ponder by the spirit field and walked back into the courtyard. Lin Jirue was a friend worth making. Therefore, he didn't stingily provide some guidance. If Lin Jirue could figure out his own way of cultivation, Lu Qing would not mind giving him some cultivation techniques. After all, he had in his mind almost the entire heritage of the Li Hua sect. Any random 1 or 2 techniques picked from the lot would suffice for Lin Jirue's cultivation. Chapter 591. Breakthrough, Foundation Establishment Stage. Young Master Lu, I've thought it over, and after listening to your explanation of the immortal cultivation, Little Yen said, I find myself quite interested in magic cultivation. Lin Jirue had stood by the spirit field for a long time before finally returning to the courtyard to speak with Lu Qing. Magic cultivation, huh? Upon hearing this, Lu Qing wasn't surprised. He smiled and nodded. That's simple. Once, Mr. Jirue, you completely transform the true qi in your body into spiritual power, I can teach you a magic cultivation technique. Young Master Lu, can you really do that? Although he had already anticipated it, Lin Jirue was still overjoyed when Lu Qing actually spoke the words, even feeling somewhat nervous. After all, that was the immortal cultivation technique, a method covetously sought even by many top sects in Central State. Lu Qing was discussing passing it on with such ease. It's just the basic immortal cultivation technique. Mr. Jirue, there's no need to be formal. The path of cultivation is long, sometimes requiring mutual support to go further. Qi refinement is merely the start of the immortal cultivation, and there's still a long journey of cultivation ahead. Lu Qing's meaningful words plunged Lin Jirue back into contemplation. Time swiftly passed, and in the blink of an eye, another month had gone by. During this month, Lu Qing, who had been concerned about the forthcoming fifth heaven and earth Tao sound, found it had not occurred. He could feel that the rules of heaven and earth had evolved to a limit 2 weeks earlier. But it hadn't triggered the fifth heaven and earth Tao sound or moved into the next phase of evolvement. It was as though it was brewing something. This made Lu Qing realize that the fifth heaven and earth Tao sound must be extraordinary. Once it sounded, there would likely be significant changes between heaven and earth. It was just uncertain how long it would brew before it transformed. However, the absence of the heaven and earth Tao sound didn't hinder Lu Qing's advancement in cultivation. In fact, after more than a month of refining, his accumulation had finally reached its limit, reaching a point where a breakthrough was necessary. So, he found some time to once again return to the Jade Cave, preparing for a closed-door breakthrough. Inside the Jade Cave, where 2 months had passed since the spiritual energy last exhausted by Lu Qing was once again replenished. And it was even richer, almost reaching a state of becoming mist-like. Seeing this, Lu Qing was very satisfied. His accumulation was too profound, and the breakthrough would require an astonishing amount of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy gathered by the village alone wouldn't be enough. That's why he chose to break through in the Jade Cave. Indeed, it didn't disappoint him here. The spiritual energy was denser than he anticipated and should support his needs for the breakthrough. Sitting in the quiet room, Lu Qing fully activated the grand formation inside the cave and confirmed there were no issues. With a slight stir of his mind, he released his heart and spirit and no longer suppressed the impulse within his body to break through. At the next moment, spiritual energy surged in the quiet room, and Lu Qing's physical body immediately began to transform. Lu Qing followed the path of body cultivation, and the breakthrough of body cultivation first transformed the physical body. Under his perceptions, his already extraordinarily strong physical body began to undergo a deeper transformation. Bone marrow, muscles, blood vessels, meridians, acupoints, all became more vibrant and lively. And all these transformations required a strong support of spiritual energy. Lu Qing's body, like a bottomless pit, continuously devoured the spiritual energy in the cave, which was then refined and purified by his life-bound magical treasure, the 5 elements gourd, for his use in the breakthrough. Fortunately, during these 2 months, the Jade Cave had accumulated enough spiritual energy. Along with the grand formation constantly gathering the external nature's spiritual energy. Otherwise, it might not have supported the needs of Lu Qing's breakthrough. Lu Qing entered into the deepest meditation, and the yen, within the leaving fire tripod, also closely observed his breakthrough. It saw Lu Qing swallowing the nearly condensed mist-like spiritual energy into his body and felt secretly astonished. It was only a breakthrough to the foundation establishment stage. Back in the Lihua sect, it had seen it countless times. Yet, it had never seen anyone's breakthrough requiring the swallowing of such an immense amount of spiritual energy. This scene, if not for the absence of heavenly tribulation, was almost comparable to a breakthrough to the Golden Core realm. Yen couldn't help but feel expectant in his heart. Lu Qing's foundation was exceptionally solid. During the Qi refinement stage, his physical body had already reached the level of body shining, comparable to a cultivator at the foundation establishment stage. His strength was no less inferior to those at the perfect foundation establishment. What level would his strength reach after this breakthrough? In the Jade Cave, there was no sight of daylight. Only the walls, emitting fluorescent light, illuminated everything. Of course, this couldn't confuse Yen. As an artifact spirit, it naturally wouldn't be so easily misled in its perception. Its grasp of time was exceedingly precise. Lu Qing's breakthrough had lasted for 3 days and nights. Until the morning of the 4th day, his body suddenly shook, dispersing the still thin spiritual energy around him, causing the entire cave to tremble slightly. A formidable aura emerged from him. It was like an ancient behemoth, extremely terrifying. Lu Qing opened his eyes, his gaze filled with joy. His breakthrough this time was very smooth. Although it was a major realm breakthrough, it did not trigger a heavenly tribulation like his previous advancement into the innate realm. There were no difficulties or twists along the way. Everything was like a natural course of events, effortlessly completed. This was the advantage of having a solid foundation and deep accumulation. Those cultivators who struggled at every single realm, encountering life and death situations. Mostly, it was because their accumulations weren't ample enough and their foundations weren't forged solidly. That's why they encountered various obstacles and found breakthroughs difficult. Is this the foundation establishment realm? Inside the Jade Cave, Lu Qing extended his hand, looking at the light shining on his skin, feeling the overwhelming power within his body, his expression indescribable. At this moment, he could feel that his physical body was several times more formidable than before the breakthrough. The spiritual power within his dantian was also surging tremendously. Even the divine soul talisman in his forehead's acupoint had greatly strengthened. Now, if he were to face the gray-robed old monk again, without using any other methods, he could probably defeat him with his physical strength alone. Congratulations, young master, on your successful breakthrough. To enter the foundation establishment stage at such a young age, even in the ancient immortal cultivation era, you would be considered a rare talent. Yan's phantom appeared next to Lu Qing immediately and said in congratulations. It's just entering the foundation establishment stage. The path of cultivation is vast and unending. The foundation establishment stage is just the starting point of cultivation. I still have a long way to go. Lu Qing shook his head. Yan didn't speak. Indeed, the foundation establishment stage was merely the beginning of cultivation. During the ancient immortal cultivation era in some major cultivation sects, it might not even be enough to enter the inner sect. But Lu Qing was different. Although he had just broken through, judging from the aura he had just revealed, Yan surmised that now he could possibly even contend against someone in the Golden Core realm. Senior Yan, how long did my breakthrough take? Lu Qing asked. Not more, not less, exactly 3 days. 3 days, huh? That's longer than I expected. Lu Qing was somewhat surprised. Young master, your profound accumulation naturally takes longer to break through. Since we've been out this long, let's head back first. Though Lu Qing wanted to test how much his strength had increased, the Jade Cave was somewhat cramped for fully displaying his capabilities. Moreover, he had promised little Yan that this trip wouldn't take long. He could always test his abilities slowly once they returned to the village. And after advancing to the foundation establishment stage, he needed to change his cultivation plans and carefully strategize. Chapter 592 Cultivation Direction. Lu Qing emerged from the Jade Cave chamber and had just left the valley when, suddenly, he let out a light exclamation. With a flash of his figure, he had already arrived on the hillside, stretched out his hand, and gently pulled something from the ground. The thing he held in his hand was first stunned, then panic-stricken, flailing its limbs in a struggle. It was unmistakably a ginseng that had taken on a human form. 1,000-year-old ginseng. I didn't expect to find such a windfall just by coming out. Lu Qing held the ginseng, feeling somewhat delighted. At his level of cultivation and with his control over power, digging up ginseng naturally didn't require him to be extra careful anymore. With a clever exertion of force and a gentle tug, he could easily pull it out. Little thing, stop struggling. I'm taking you to a better place. Lu Qing condensed a simple talisman and sealed the ginseng's movements, tucking it away. Just right, in the half-mountain small courtyard's medicine field, that ginseng was a bit lonely. This one could keep it company. After securing the 1,000-year-old ginseng, Lu Qing surveyed the surroundings once more. He knew that in this area, there must be other 1,000-year-old ginsengs. However, he had no intention of looking for them. The Jade Cave chamberside was his secret base. These ginsengs thrived on the geomantic and spiritual energy gathered by the large array and were not prone to leaving easily. When he needed them in the future, he could just come back to dig them up. A clear light surfaced on his body as Lu Qing turned into a breeze, rising up and flying toward Jili village. Indeed, after the breakthrough, even using talismans has become much more effortless. As he flew, Lu Qing also carefully felt the internal changes in his body. A breakthrough of the major realm brought far-reaching changes. After stepping into the foundation establishment stage, not only his physical strength but also his spiritual power and divine soul power had significantly increased. Naturally, invoking spirit talismans had become much easier. Moreover, this was because he had just made a breakthrough. Once he recondensed the spirit talismans stored in the acupoint between his eyebrows and replaced them with even more powerful ones, the strength he could muster using talisman power would become even more formidable. The Jade Cave Chamber was not far from Jili Village, and with Lu Qing using the power of spirit talismans to fly, he soon returned to the village and descended toward the half-mountain small courtyard. Who goes there? When Lu Qing's body made contact with the protective array's power surrounding Jili Village, the elder doctor's figure instantly appeared in the courtyard, looking up into the sky with a serious expression. "Master, it's me." Lu Qing descended slowly from the sky and said with a smile, "So it's Qing, have you come out of seclusion?" The elder doctor let out a sigh of relief. He had thought that a powerful adversary was about to attack Jili Village. After relaxing, the elder doctor then noticed the aura emanating from Lu Qing. He exclaimed in surprise immediately, Qing, have you made a breakthrough?" Indeed. This retreat went very smoothly. Lu Qing had intentionally revealed his aura. Otherwise, with the divine soul talisman present, if he wished to hide his aura, even his master would have difficulty seeing through it. "Well done on your breakthrough. That's marvelous news. Qing. Now your cultivation has thoroughly caught up with your masters." The elder doctor was both happy and a little melancholic. Ever since he knew of Lu Qing's talent for cultivation, the elder doctor knew that his own cultivation realm would eventually be caught up to, and even surpassed by his disciple. But when that day truly arrived, he still felt some nostalgia. Sometimes, having a disciple who is too outstanding also puts a bit of pressure on the master. "Disciple is still far behind the master," Lu Qing said with a smile. "You just know how to flatter." The elder doctor laughed and scolded. "Speaking of which, master, where are little Yen and little Li?" Lu Qing sensed for a moment and found that both little ones were not in Half-Mountain Small Courtyard. They went to the Wei family's separate residence. "Last night, the Wei family invited us over for a banquet, and Mrs. Wei kept little Yen and the others." Lu Qing nodded. Mrs. Wei was very fond of little Yen, so sometimes little Yen would also stay overnight at the Wei family's separate residence. The news of Lu Qing's breakthrough was known only to the elder doctor and no one else. With his realm, hiding his cultivation was naturally an easy feat. So neither Wei Shanhai nor Lin Jirue knew that Lu Qing had already stepped into the foundation establishment stage. In fact, they had never seen through Lu Qing's true strength. Every time they interacted with Lu Qing, they only felt enveloped in layers of mist around him, utterly unable to sense his actual realm. 2 days later, in the early morning, in the bamboo forest behind the mountain, Lu Qing sat cross-legged. Spiritual power surged around him, his hands continuously changing seal techniques, while a spirit talisman in front of him slowly took shape. As the final spell was cast, the spirit talisman was completely formed, floating before him, exuding a strong and indescribable aura. Feeling the power contained within the spirit talisman, Lu Qing revealed a pleased expression and stored it in the acupoint between his brows. The last spirit talisman has also been successfully condensed. After stepping into the foundation establishment stage, condensing spirit talismans has indeed become much simpler. Even low-level spirit talismans are not difficult to condense. Lu Qing looked relaxed. Over the past 2 days, he had replaced all the spirit talismans stored in the acupoint between his brows with stronger ones. Previously, the acupoint between the brows only contained basic spirit talismans, but now they were replaced with low-level spirit talismans. In the rune path, the spirit talismans of each grade varied greatly in power. Low-level spirit talismans are usually condensable only by talisman cultivators above the foundation establishment stage. After replacing all the spirit talismans in the acupoint between the brows, Lu Qing effectively had several more tricks up his sleeve. Now that the spirit talismans are replaced, next is the cultivation of divine skills. Lu Qing pondered. These past 2 days, He reviewed all he had learned and generally determined the direction of his cultivation after the foundation establishment stage. First was the main cultivation technique, the 5 elements body refining technique. This did not require much effort from him. With the life-bound magical treasure, the 5 elements gourd, continually refining pure spiritual energy for him, his cultivation was essentially on autopilot. So long as he regularly forged his physical body with spiritual energy, there would be no difficulty at all. As the energy accumulated, he would be able to continuously improve his cultivation without hitting any bottleneck. Then there was the rune path. This too was simple. Since his divine soul talisman had advanced to the Yang talisman realm, Lu Qing's progress in the rune path could be described as exceedingly rapid. Moreover, with his superpower, no matter how difficult or obscure the spirit talismans and arrays were, he could easily comprehend them. It was only his realm that limited him from employing high-level spirit talismans and arrays. But once his cultivation realm improved, he would rapidly master the corresponding spirit talismans and arrays. Lu Qing had already mastered both the 5 elements body refining technique and the rune path. It wouldn't take too much of his heart and spirit. At least before reaching the golden core realm, there shouldn't be too many problems. Therefore, in the coming days, he planned to devote more of his energy to other cultivation practices. That was Divine Skills. Chapter 593, Comprehending Divine Skills, Determining the Coordinates of the Starry Sky. When Lu Qing initially broke through to the innate realm, he received 2 divine skills bestowed by the heavens. 1 physical body divine skill, Great Strength, and 1 divine soul divine ability, Mistaken. Both were small divine powers, but they could be advanced through cultivation. After pondering over these for so long, Lu Qing had gained a rather deep understanding of these 2 innate small divine powers. However, he still had some distance to go before he could fully master them. And limited by his realm and strength, the power he could exert was also limited. Now that he had broken through to the foundation establishment stage, his strength had greatly increased. He undoubtedly should be able to further control these 2 small divine powers. Time passed, day by day. The spies of the Wei family, who were stationed outside, often sent back news that states, especially Central State, were now quite chaotic. There were even sects initiating wars over the struggle for opportunities. In response, the Holy Mountain had not taken any action, never stepping forward to stop these disputes. As a result, the major sects had become even more careless, and the conflicts escalated further. There were even those in the innate realm who started battles directly within the city, creating much slaughter. By now, the various rules set down by the Holy Mountain 1,000 years ago had been completely obliterated. In such turmoil, Zhuli village, secluded in its corner, became exceptionally peaceful, turning into a sanctuary. In such tranquility, Lu Qing pondered over his 2 innate small divine powers, quietly cultivating. High above in the distant sky, on that massive meteorite, the mysterious Golden Core Realm brothers were fiddling with a peculiar magical treasure, measuring something in the starry sky. Senior brother, how is it? Have you measured out the spatial coordinates of our current location in the starry sky? The white-robed youth asked. We can only estimate the general direction. The region we are now in is not recorded in the star map within our sect. According to the measurements, we should still be within the Great Origin Immortal Domain. But at the outskirts, in a dimly lit area, that's why it's not on the sect's star map, the gray-robed man said. The edge of the Great Origin Immortal Domain, the white-robed youth exclaimed in shock. We've actually come to such a remote star region. Senior brother, your void ship can actually cross half of the immortal domain in one go. How could that be possible? If the void ship had such power, how could I be the one to activate it? Although the gray-robed man was equally astonished, he was much calmer than his junior brother. Crossing half an immortal domain, even a top-grade spiritual artifact, would not be capable of such a feat. It was feared that only those Tao artifacts, which in legends, the top immortal sects used to suppress the fortunes of a sect, could have such an inconceivable power. But weren't you saying that we are now at the edge of the Great Origin Immortal Domain? If not for the void ship, why would we appear here? Asked the white-robed youth, puzzled. Indeed, it's quite inconceivable. The gray-robed man fell into deep thought. He could be sure that the void ship did not possess such capabilities. He had obtained this magical treasure from a peculiar secret realm, and although it was quite mystical, due to damage it had once sustained, its power was at most equivalent to a low-grade spirit artifact. Yet now, the fact was that they had indeed arrived at the desolate edge of the immortal domain, half a realm away. The gray-robed man could be certain that the measuring magical treasure in his hands was not broken. Among them, there must have been some reason that they had overlooked. The gray-robed man carefully recollected the situation when they had hastily fled after seizing the Pure Lotus. As a Golden Core realm powerhouse, his memory was naturally extremely sharp. He found the recollections of that day still vivid, as if right before his eyes. Soon he found something amiss. Junior brother, do you still remember the day we were escaping from the secret realm? At the very last moment when I activated the void ship, aside from the brilliance of Sword Dao's Sword One, it seemed another extraordinary light emerged within the secret realm. The white-robed youth also recalled the event. Then he too was somewhat uncertain as he said, "It seemed there was a strange light that flared up, but I'm not sure if it was Sword One's Sword Dao light. Whatever Sword One had activated with his divine power at that time was indeed too terrifying. Honestly, he was almost scared out of his wits. Had it not been for Senior Brother's void ship activating at the last moment, it was likely that both of them, as Junior and Senior Brothers, would have perished within the secret realm. That must be unmistakable. If I'm not wrong, that should have been the glow from a transmission array. It appears that while I was activating the void ship, for some unknown reason, it triggered the ancient transmission array within the secret realm. The void ship's capability to traverse the void, coupled with an unknown transmission array. The combination of the two allowed us to arrive directly at this desolate place on the fringe of the immortal domain. At this point, the gray-robed man's tone revealed a hint of relief. If that truly was the case, they were extremely lucky. You see, although transmission arrays can cross space and teleport people to another location, the greater the distance, the stronger the spatial pressure the teleported person must bear. Thus, ordinary cultivators can only teleport within the same great world. Even Golden Core realm experts have their limits as to how much spatial pressure they can endure. That they could traverse half the immortal domain without dying is probably due more to the protection of the void ship. We've actually arrived at the edge of the great origin immortal domain. Senior brother, what should we do now? Such a remote distance, even if we manage to contact our sect, it would likely take them several decades to arrive. The tone of the white-robed youth was heavy. The gray-robed man's expression was similarly not good. Such a great distance would significantly diminish the value of that small world to the sect. Even if they were to set up a transmission array, the cost of a single transfer would be too great, and the sect may not be willing to do so. He had thought that after he and his brother had scoured the place, they would report the location of this small world to their sect and earn a substantial reward. Now it seemed that this plan was likely to fail. Regardless, this small world is still of great value to us. We'll go in and plunder what we can first. At the very least, we can sell the coordinates of this small world to some sects in the nearby Great World and should be able to make a good amount of spirit stones. In the end, the gray-robed man gritted his teeth and made a decision. They were ultimately going to return to their sect, and since the small world was too far away, even if they reported it to their sect, they were afraid they wouldn't get much benefit from it. It would be more profitable to sell it to other forces. There's no other way. The white-robed youth nodded. But senior brother, have you thought about which power to sell to? I just checked the star map, and the closest great world to us is Heavenly Origin Great World. We can sell the coordinates here to the immortal sect within it. Heavenly Origin Great World. The white-robed young man was startled as this was a renowned great world within the entire Great Origin Immortal Domain. Its overall strength ranked in the top 10 within the Great Origin Immortal Domain and was no lesser than their own great world. All right, let's do as you say, senior brother. The white-robed youth had no objections. The gray-robed man's gaze was directed towards the small world in front of them, which emitted a faint glow. During this month or so, both our injuries have healed. Now, we just wait for this small world to revive a little longer until it can accommodate our entry. Time passed day by day. Under the watchful eyes of the Golden Core Realm brothers, the reviving power of the small world in front of them was steadily increasing. Finally, after another half a month, its brilliance surged suddenly. Chapter 594 Immortal Will, The Secret of the Golden Core. Senior brother, look! The white-robed youth, who had been paying close attention to the small world, saw the movement and immediately shouted. It seems that this small world has finally revived to the extent that it can accommodate our entry. The gray-robed man sensed the might emitted by the small world, and a smile appeared on his face. Senior brother, shall we enter now? No rush. Right now, the heaven and earth rules within the small world have just begun to transform. If we enter now, it's very likely to provoke a fierce reaction from the will of this realm. Let's wait a few days until the evolution of the rules stabilizes before we enter. The gray-robed man was not overly eager. Has the fifth heaven and earth Tao sound finally rung? In the bamboo forest behind the Lu family's back mountain, Lu Qing sat cross-legged on a bluestone, looked up at the sky, and quietly listened to the grand heaven and earth Tao sound. At the same time, his heart and spirit were sensing the changes in the surrounding heaven and earth rules. Then he found that this time's transformation of heaven and earth rules was more intense than any before. A vast amount of spiritual energy surged from the deep layers of space, its richness exceeding that of Central State in the past. More importantly, Lu Qing felt that after this Tao sound, the rules between heaven and earth began to exhibit a hint of immortal significance. Golden Core Immortal. Once the transformation of the heaven and earth rules settles down, this realm will be able to accommodate the birth of the Golden Core Realm. Lu Qing was blessed with inner enlightenment, and a moment of clear understanding rose in his heart. He carried most of the Li Huasek's legacy, which included several core cultivation techniques that pointed directly to the primordial spirit. Therefore, he had a wealth of knowledge about the Golden Core Realm. To break through from the foundation establishment stage to the Golden Core Realm, the most important thing was to grasp that whiff of the Golden Core's immortal atmosphere. To draw in a trace of heaven and earth rules, refine it into oneself, and merge it into the spiritual power. Transforming spiritual power into mana. To cultivate that round, golden core. This time, after the fifth heaven and earth Tao sound echoed, the heaven and earth rules evolved a hint of immortal meaning. This signifies that the realm has finally revived to the stage where it can allow the birth of the Golden Core Realm. Law Immortal Significance. Has the world finally revived to this degree? In front of a Taoist temple in East State, an elder Taoist looked up at the sky and murmured to himself. The Taoist scriptures left by our ancestors state that only when the law presents an immortal significance, by refining it into spiritual power, can the power be transformed into mana, concentrating it into a golden core. Only then does the path of cultivation truly enter the threshold. After tens of thousands of years of waiting, we've finally arrived at this moment. The elder Taoist, remembering the many predecessors within the sect who were stuck at perfect foundation establishment and could not break through, dying in depression and reluctance, felt an infinity of emotions surge in his heart. No matter how stunning your talents are, with the limitations of heaven and earth, immortality remains unattainable. Now, cultivators all over the world have finally seen the first light in endless darkness. The moment has finally arrived. In the Cloudwater secret realm, an elder wearing a robe with flowing cloud patterns listened to the grand Tao sound from beyond the heavens, with boundless joy on his face. Has the heaven and earth Tao sound finally struck 5 times? Inside an ancient temple on the top of suspended mountain's secret realm, multiple presences gradually awakened. With the immortal significance of the laws to concentrate the golden core, Master, you ultimately did not live to see this day. In the Coldwater Palace secret realm, a cool voice sighed wistfully. Second brother, third brother, once the transformation of the heaven and earth rules stabilizes, prepare for the breakthrough. Atop Holy Mountain, a voice echoed leisurely. Yes, big brother. Hee, we've finally waited for this day. Those damn 4 great secret places must never have imagined that we are still alive. Just wait. Once we break through this sealed land, we must avenge the tens of thousands of years of humiliation and torment. In some extremely cold and dark place, a sinister voice echoed. The 5th heaven and earth Tao sound rang out, and the law evolved, transforming into an immortal will. The top forces in the world, along with those cultivators who had suffered for hundreds of years unable to make a breakthrough, all welcomed this endless joy. The heaven and earth Tao sound rang out, steadily and without urgency. Finally, after the last Tao sound finished, calm returned to heaven and earth. Of course, to cultivators like Lu Qing, heaven and earth were far from calm. The heaven and earth rules continued to evolve. It's just that compared to the violent transformation before, it had become much more gentle. Deep within space, spiritual energy was still pouring out continuously. Under the nourishment of such rich spiritual energy, it wouldn't be long before the world would be faced with another transformation. King. The elder doctor's figure appeared in the bamboo forest, his face somewhat solemn. Teacher, did you feel it too? Lu Qing wasn't surprised. He had sensed his teacher's approach long ago. Yes, this time the Tao sound rang out, and the evolution of the heaven and earth rules seems somewhat different to before, the elder doctor said with some uncertainty. It is different, Lu Qing nodded. These heaven and earth rules now contain a hint of immortal will. This law, infusing the immortal will, is essential for the condensation of the golden core. It seems that before long, there will be eminent figures in the world breaking through to the golden core realm. Golden core realm. The elder doctor's cultivation technique was specially selected for him by Lu Qing, likewise a profound cultivation method that could reach the primordial spirit realm. So he understood what Lu Qing meant. A hint of worry appeared on his face. Qing, I remember you said that there might be more than one late-stage foundation establishment cultivator in the Suspended Mountain secret realm. With the foundation of these secret lands, now that the heaven and earth rules have evolved, there must also be someone at Suspended Mountain who will break through to the Golden Core realm. In that case, teacher need not worry, Lu Qing said with a smile. Not to mention that the Golden Core realm is not so easy to break through. One must undergo the 49 heavenly tribulation, use the power of the thunder tribulation to refine the immortal will-infused power of laws into their body, combine it with their spiritual power, and transform to manifest mana. Only then is it possible to condense the Golden Core and step into the Golden Core realm. In this process, every step can be described as fraught with crisis and exceptional danger. A slight carelessness may cause problems, with minor issues leading to serious injury or, in the worst case, death and the obliteration of their Tao. Even if one is fortunate enough to survive the heavenly tribulation and transform to manifest mana, achieving the Golden Core realm, most cultivators will have a period of weakness and need to seclude themselves for a while to recuperate and stabilize their realm. So even if there are hidden powerhouses in the Suspended Mountain secret realm who manage to cross the tribulation and break through to the Golden Core realm, for the time being, they shouldn't have the opportunity to trouble us. Lu Qing inherited the Li Huasec's legacy, and at his side was Yen, a venerable artifact spirit that had lived for tens of thousands of years. Especially Yen, having witnessed many foundation establishment cultivators form their cores in the Li Hua sect. It knew many secrets of the Golden Core realm very well. Lu Qing often consulted it about cultivation matters and naturally understood these concepts. Chapter 595. Small Success in Divine Skills Power Surge. I see. The elder doctor, upon hearing Lu Qing's words, suddenly understood. Although he didn't know how long it would take to stabilize the realm after breaking through to the Golden Core realm, judging by Lu Qing's demeanor, it was obvious he had a plan. So master, there's no need to worry. Even if someone at the Suspended Mountain truly breaks through to the Golden Core realm, we may not necessarily be afraid of them. Lu Qing said with a slight smile. The tone held a confidence that inspired others. Qing, as long as you have confidence in your heart, that's good. The elder doctor did not doubt Lu Qing's words, because he knew his disciple never did anything without confidence. Although the Golden Core realm was indeed powerful, Since Lu Qing claimed to not fear it, he must have a reason. After the master left, Lu Qing continued to comprehend the process of evolution of the heaven and earth rules around him. Previously, his realm was low, and his understanding of the heaven and earth rules was extremely superficial. Now that he entered the foundation establishment stage, though his understanding remained shallow, he could gradually grasp a hint of its essence. Young master, are you really not worried that the old guys within the suspended mountain will come looking for trouble after they break through to the innate realm? Yan's figure appeared by Lu Qing's side. What, even Senior Yan is worried? As the distinguished artifact spirit, you must have witnessed many primordial spirit realms, yet would you still care about a mere golden core realm? Lu Qing teased. Yet unexpectedly, Yan turned serious. I know that you, young master, are exceptionally talented, almost invincible within the same realm. But the golden core realm is different. Those who transform from mana, their power is beyond what the foundation establishment stage can imagine. The power of the same spell, when driven by spiritual power versus mana, is a fundamental difference. So, young master, you must not underestimate any golden core realm. Seeing Yan speak so seriously, Lu Qing also turned earnest. I will remember Senior's advice. Don't worry, Senior Yan. The power of the golden core realm is naturally something I respect. I won't provoke them unless absolutely necessary. Yan observed Lu Qing for a moment and nodded upon seeing he was not joking. As long as you are aware, young master, although the leaving fire tripod and the heaven and earth pouch are strong, your realm is still a bit low, and the power you can exert is limited. Even with 2 spiritual artifacts in hand, confronting a true golden core realm could still be challenging. Understood. Yan said no more. Though he had been by Lu Qing's side for so long, there was still a mysterious aura about Lu Qing that Yan could not fully understand. If he was so confident, perhaps he did have an ace up his sleeve that Yan was unaware of. The following days remained calm as Lu Qing continued to comprehend the evolution of the heaven and earth rules, gradually gaining insights. On this day, in the process of contemplation, he suddenly had a flash of enlightenment, and a deep understanding arose naturally. An enigmatic aura emerged on his body. Finally, I've cultivated this small divine power of great strength to a small success stage. With my current power, I might not be much different from those body cultivators of the golden core realm. Feeling the surging and formidable power within his body, Lu Qing revealed a satisfied expression. He could feel that, with his current strength, even a small tremor might completely destroy this bamboo forest in the back mountain. Such power had already exceeded the category of the foundation establishment realm and might rival that of the golden core realm. Young master, what is this? From within the leaving fire tripod, Yan manifested a phantom next to Lu Qing, his ghostly face full of shock. The aura emanating from Lu Qing made even Yan, who hadn't fully recovered to his peak, feel a sense of trepidation. This was not the level of power a foundation establishment realm could possess. Senior Yan, don't be alarmed. It's just a secret technique I've been cultivating that has yielded some results, Lu Qing said.
Secret technique.
The shock on Yan's face did not diminish. It was hard to believe what kind of secret technique could elevate Lu Qing's strength to such an extent. At least, there was definitely no such terrifying secret technique in the Li Hua sect back then. At that thought, worry surfaced in Yan's heart, and a trace of concern appeared on his face. Young master, some secret techniques may indeed boost your strength dramatically in a short time, but if it depletes your potential, it would be a grave loss. Lu Qing was stunned, and then immediately understood what Yan was referring to. What? Does Senior Yan think I've been practicing some Demon Dao secret technique? Lu Qing chuckled. Yan said nothing, but his implication was clear, especially when he thought that within the leaving fire tripod, there was a mysterious demon cultivator's divine soul. That demon cultivator was enslaved by Lu Qing, and they could communicate through the enslavement mark. Could it be that the demon cultivator had truly bewitched Lu Qing? Young master, demon cultivators are always treacherous and deceitful. Their words are full of lies and traps. You must be cautious and do not easily believe them. It seems there is a real misunderstanding from Senior. When Lu Qing heard this, he instantly realized what Yan meant. He thought Lu Qing was bewitched by the demon cultivator into practicing some harmful demon technique and evil technique. However, Yan's concern still warmed his heart somewhat. At least this ancient artifact spirit was genuinely looking out for him. What, you didn't practice the secret technique given by the demon cultivator, young master? Of course not. I've been practicing the 5 elements body refining technique, which Senior knows, so how could I cultivate those demon Dao techniques that harm the foundation? Lu Qing shook his head. Then your strength. Yan did not doubt Lu Qing, but his strength had increased so inexplicably. Aside from those evil techniques and demon techniques that damage potential and foundation in exchange for power, Yan couldn't think of any other secret technique that could elevate Lu Qing's strength so much in such a short time. Watching this, Lu Qing suddenly smiled. Has Senior Yan ever heard of divine skills? Divine skills? Yan was initially stunned. Then his eyes widened. Young master, are you talking about divine skills? His voice even turned a bit sharp. That's right. Lu Qing dismissed the divine power within his body, and his aura gradually gathered back. When I crossed the tribulation back then, I was fortunately granted the divine secret skill from the heavens. Just now, I managed to comprehend and cultivate that divine skill successfully. It was actually a divine skill. Yan murmured, his gaze filled with shock. As an artifact spirit that had existed for tens of thousands of years, Yan certainly knew what divine skills were. But divine skills were extremely rare. Even in the ancient immortal cultivation era, only a handful of fortunate cultivators possessed them under very fortunate circumstances. And those cultivators, as long as they grew smoothly, almost all became giants in the cultivation world, among the top tier of strong cultivators. And now, Lu Qing actually possessed divine skills? Chapter 596. Tribulation Cloud reappears. To everyone's surprise, the secret technique Lu Qing spoke of turned out to be the legendary divine skills. Yan's heart was filled with shock. However, if it is divine skills, then everything makes sense. I didn't expect, young master, that you actually possess divine skills. I was too ignorant and misunderstood you. The elders were merely worried that I was on the wrong path, but Lu Qing would certainly understand that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have revealed this critical card of his. No wonder, young master, you're so confident. The talk of divine skills, even I have only heard about them, never been fortunate enough to witness them. Back then, even though the Lihua sect was full of talented people and was considered a major sect in the entire cultivation world, it didn't have anyone who possessed divine skills. Therefore, Yan was not very detailed in his understanding of the divine skills. Of course, though curious, Yan didn't specifically ask Lu Qing what his divine skills were. Lu Qing had already shown a great deal of trust by revealing such a major card, so it would be quite disrespectful to probe further. But with this, Yan's concerns were also completely dissipated. The path of divine skills is profound and unpredictable, with immense power, much more mysterious than any cultivation technique or secret technique. With Lu Qing possessing innately bestowed divine skills and his extraordinary talent, with his current strength, he might not easily be outmatched against an ordinary Golden Core realm. After all, in the ancient immortal cultivation era, there was an example where a cultivator used divine power to cross a major realm and at the Golden Core realm, reverse slain a primordial spirit, shaking the entire cultivation world. And that cultivator later ascended to the primordial spirit realm, becoming a prominent figure in the cultivation world that almost no one dared to provoke, virtually a legend. Lu Qing's divine skills, even if not as powerful as that person's, who could cross realms to kill golden cores, could at least contend. Plus, with its assistance, even a golden core realm might truly not be able to do anything against him. I was merely lucky. When I crossed the tribulation in Central State in the past, I obtained the divine skills. Divine skills are a heaven-given gift, which suggests that, young master, your talent has reached the extent of alarming the will of the heavenly Tao in the unseen, thus bestowing divine skills deliberately as your protection. Yan sighed with awe. What is truly earth-shattering, Lu Qing, that's genuinely earth-shattering. His cultivation talent is so high that the will of the heavenly Tao couldn't help but bestow him divine skills to safeguard his growth smoothly. Lu Qing smiled lightly and did not speak further. He did not tell Yen that he obtained more than one divine skill. Instead, he closed his eyes and continued cultivating, comprehending another small divine power of divine soul. Mistaken. Mysterious aura emerged again on Lu Qing's body. Seeing this, Yen sensibly withdrew his presence and returned to the leaving fire tripod. Only the worries in its heart had already dissipated. On the contrary, there was more anticipation for the future. Days continued to pass, the rules of heaven and earth in the realm were still evolving. The concentration of spiritual energy also kept increasing, but its speed gradually slowed down. Finally, when Lu Qing cultivated Mistaken to the small success realm, it became barely perceptible. It seems the next heaven and earth Tao sound might not come for a long time. Lu Qing sensed the rules of heaven and earth, gaining some insight. After the 5th time the heaven and earth Tao sound rang, the evolution of heaven and earth rules emanated a trace of immortal meaning and became more stable. Though still in a state of gradual evolution, its speed was very slow. If carefully realized, it's almost difficult to detect. Lu Qing immediately understood that up until now, the reviving world's progress had temporarily settled down and truly stabilized. The next time the heaven and earth Tao sound rings, it might not be coming anytime soon. Indeed, since the evolution of heaven and earth rules has stabilized, those old veterans might also be reaching the point of crossing tribulation and breakthrough, right? Lu Qing's gaze seemed to penetrate space, looking into the distance. Central State, Holy Mountain. Big brother, are you sure you want to prepare for crossing tribulation and breakthrough? The 3rd saint, who once fought with Lu Qing, was now looking at his big brother, the 1st Saint Master who oversees the Holy Mountain. His face no longer had the aloofness from the battle with Lu Qing but showed some nervousness and worry. Yes, big brother. Maybe it's not too late to accumulate further. Why rush at the moment? Judging by the speed of the evolution of heaven and earth rules, the next heaven and earth Tao sound might take a long time to arrive. We have plenty of time to cultivate slowly. The 2nd Saint Master similarly said. You guys are indeed still afraid. The 1st Saint Master sighed and said, this path of cultivation, the greatest taboo is being hesitant and indecisive. Once the opportunity for breakthrough has been glimpsed, it's necessary to seize the chance, advance boldly and make the breakthrough. Hesitating might lead to missed chances, stuck in bottlenecks without any progress. Though that's true, ultimately facing heavenly tribulation, who wouldn't be filled with reverence? The 2nd Saint Master smiled bitterly and said, that's why I'll pave the way for you, crossing the tribulation first. Regardless of success or failure, you should be able to gain some experience from it. The 1st Saint Master said calmly. His tone was utterly peaceful, without any trace of the tremor coming with crossing tribulation. The 2nd Saint Master and 3rd Saint Master heard the determination in their big brother's words and finally ceased to persuade. When do you plan to cross the tribulation, big brother? Right now. Now? The 2nd and 3rd Saint Masters were startled. Yes, right now. The 1st Saint Master looked up at the sky. They were now at the peak of Holy Mountain. As entities closely linked with Holy Mountain, the peculiar suppressive force atop Holy Mountain had little to no effect on the 3 brotherly masters. Therefore, they could easily ascend to the peak. At this moment, overhead was a deep blue sky, completely clear. But as the 1st Saint Master released his heart and spirit, no longer suppressing his cultivation aura, the sky immediately transformed, showing movement. Massive gray clouds appeared out of thin air, rapidly gathering into a tribulation cloud vortex. An overwhelmingly oppressive aura weighed down the lands. Such heavenly might naturally could not be concealed from others. A myriad of people in the holy city at the foot of the holy mountain instantly noticed the sky's commotion. Look quickly. What's on top of the holy mountain? Tribulation cloud. Who's crossing tribulation again? To cross tribulation on holy mountain, who else could it be? It must be one of the Saint Masters. The fifth heaven and earth Tao sound has just gone by. Are the Saint Masters about to cross tribulation and break through already? When the many powerful figures in the holy city saw the gray cloud vortex forming on Holy Mountain, they were all astounded. Having witnessed the last mysterious young man's crossing of the tribulation, all the powerful figures instantly recognized that what appeared in the sky was indeed the tribulation cloud. Someone on Holy Mountain is crossing tribulation. For a moment, all the powerful figures understood what was happening. Chapter 597. Saint Master Crossing the Tribulation. Which Saint Master is going to cross the tribulation? In the holy city, many powerful figures looked at the tribulation cloud gathering above the holy mountain, shocked and exceedingly curious. On the holy mountain, the only ones capable of invoking a tribulation cloud were the three Saint Masters. There could be no one else. But as to which Saint Master specifically would cross the tribulation, the cloud alone was not enough for them to determine. Though curious, the powerful figures did not dare to approach the holy mountain to investigate any further. The tribulation cloud gathered atop the holy mountain was quite immense, and the heavenly might it emitted was even more terrifying than when that mysterious youth crossed his tribulation. If they approached now and inadvertently got caught by a tribulation thunder, there would truly be no place for them to cry. So, everyone had no choice but to remain in the holy city, waiting with reverence for the cloud to disperse, hoping for an opportunity to investigate. The power of this heavenly tribulation is truly fearsome. On the holy mountain, the second and third Saint Masters looked at the tribulation cloud above, equally shocked. They had thought that, with their centuries of accumulation, facing the heavenly tribulation would be somewhat easier. Now it seemed they were too optimistic. Even as the gathering cloud had yet to reach its peak, they already felt their heart and spirit trembling. Indeed, the Golden Core tribulation was far more dreadful than they anticipated. Elder brother. The third saint looked to the first Saint Master. You all should retreat, said the first Saint Master, still calm. The movement of Qi has invoked the heavenly tribulation. There is no turning back now. You are both at the perfection of the foundation establishment realm. If you linger here and the Qi of heaven finds you, it might trigger your own heavenly tribulations as well. Then be careful, elder brother. The second and third Saint Masters knew that crossing a tribulation was a matter solely reliant on the cultivator themselves. Their presence here would not help. On the contrary, if their own heavenly tribulations were triggered, no one could predict the consequences. It was certain that the tribulation would become incredibly terrifying and impossible to pass. Even now, they could feel the Qi they had been suppressing within their bodies gently being stirred. Not daring to hesitate, the two quickly employed their movement techniques, retreating from the mountaintop out of the tribulation's range. As guardians, before reaching the primordial spirit realm, their true bodies could not leave the holy mountain. However, the holy mountain was large enough, allowing the heavenly tribulation to cover only a portion of it. Thus, there was plenty of space for the second and third Saint Masters to avoid. As the two retreated, the tribulation cloud in the sky had almost solidified, its power reaching a peak. Once they had retreated to a safe distance and looked up again, the tribulation cloud began flickering with lightning. The first Saint Master looked up at the sky, feeling the power emitted by the tribulation cloud. Though his demeanor remained calm, his eyes grew solemn. He was confident that his millennium of cultivation and accumulation would allow him to pass the tribulation and achieve the Golden Core. But the power revealed by the tribulation cloud exceeded his expectations. According to Immortal Tao ancient books, tribulation clouds come in different colors. Among clouds of the same grade, the deeper the color, the stronger the power. This cloud, within its deep gray, carries a hint of red. It seems this is the reason for its exceeding power. The first Saint Master, who governed the holy mountain and ruled the world for a millennium, had naturally received extraordinary legacies and understood the various aspects of cultivation well. Looking at the faint thread of red in his tribulation cloud, he understood why its power was so formidable. However, a determined expression appeared on the first Saint Master's face. Despite the unexpectedly formidable power of the tribulation, he believed that he would overcome the calamity and enter the Golden Core realm. His confidence was derived from the long accumulation of his cultivation. As the tribulation cloud's power intensified, the pulsating lightning grew brighter and began to gather at the center of a vortex. Not daring to neglect, the first Saint Master mustered all his cultivation, ready and alert. At the same time, he prepared the magical treasure refined within his body, ready to deploy it should he struggle to withstand and defend against the tribulation thunder. The strong figures within the holy city felt the cloud's power, and all were trembling with apprehension. Even the second and third Saint Masters fully restrained their auras, not daring to show any disrespect to the heavenly tribulation. Finally, under countless gazes, as the lightning at the tribulation cloud's core brightened to its peak, a white thunder with a hint of red descended, striking the first Saint Master atop the mountain. "Come on!" Determination showed in the first Saint Master's eyes. He formed a seal technique with his hands, and a giant earth dragon suddenly surged from the ground beside him, meeting the falling thunder. Boom! The earth dragon met the tribulation thunder mid-air, and instantly the massive earth dragon was engulfed in lightning, shattered in a flash. Yet, through such an obstacle, the power of the first tribulation thunder had been largely diminished. The thunder, originally as thick as a bucket, shrank to merely the size of an arm, easily dispelled by the first Saint Master's earth magic. The first tribulation thunder had been overcome by the first Saint Master in this manner. Great! The first tribulation thunder was blocked. The second and third Saint Masters were thrilled to see this scene. The ease with which Elder Brother dispelled the first tribulation thunder sparked great hope for successfully crossing this heavenly tribulation. The power of the first tribulation thunder is as I'd expected. Bathed in abundant vitality chi, the first Saint Master's cultivation technique circulated within him, rapidly absorbing the vitality chi imbued with rule power, bolstering his confidence further. Though heavenly tribulations are harsh, the heavens likewise bestow a faint trace of vitality. With each tribulation thunder endured, the heavens grant vitality to heal and strengthen the cultivator's body, offering a sliver of opportunity. It's said that when a cultivator crosses a tribulation, the number of tribulation thunders is not fixed. Ranging from 1 to 9, they've all been seen before. I wonder how many thunders my heavenly tribulation will have. Poised to cross the tribulation, the first Saint Master had made ample preparations. Aware of all sorts of tribulation-related information, he strove to minimize surprises. He knew although the number of tribulation thunders isn't fixed, there is a limit. Ancient texts reveal the strongest tribulation contains 9 tribulation thunders. Indeed, cultivators capable of invoking a 9-thunder tribulation are exceedingly rare. Typically, they are those whose cultivation talent defies the heavens and whose accumulation runs unbelievably deep as peerless geniuses. Or those whose crimes are so grave that even the heavenly Tao seeks their annihilation as unrivaled devils. These are the few who might invoke the strongest tribulation. Otherwise, generally speaking, the more thunders a cultivator triggers, the stronger their talent and accumulation. Likewise, once the tribulation is crossed, the path of cultivation becomes smoother. Let's see how many tribulation thunders mine will have. Looking at the tribulation cloud above, the first Saint Master held anticipation in his eyes. Chapter 598 Arrival. Senior Brother, has the evolution of this small world's rules completely stabilized? On the massive meteor above the sky, the young man in white robes gazed at the small world ahead, faintly glowing and resembling an egg, and asked. The man in gray robes sensed with his heart and spirit for a moment, then nodded. Almost done. Let's prepare to enter. Having said this, he waved his hand and brought out the somewhat damaged, spindle-shaped flying boat. For us Golden Core cultivators from another world, breaking through the boundary wall and crossing those layers of celestial gale isn't easy. We have to rely on your void-flying boat, Senior Brother. But Senior Brother, you've had this void-flying boat for quite a while. Have you never thought of repairing these damaged parts? The young man in white looked at the flying boat summoned by his senior brother, a flicker of envy in his eyes. His senior brother's void-flying boat was extremely mystical, not only having strong defensive power but also capable of traversing the void, allowing them to survive many calamities together. The only pity was that, perhaps due to its damages, it didn't possess any offensive capabilities. Most of the time, it could only be used for travel and escape. Do you think I haven't thought of fully repairing it? The man in gray robes replied irritably. But the refining materials for this void-flying boat are very peculiar. Not only have I never seen them, but even in the exotic treasure records of the sect, they aren't mentioned. Over the years, I've even issued bounty tasks at the treasure tower, yet no one has ever completed them or identified these materials. The void-flying boat was undoubtedly the most precious treasure of the man in gray robes. Of course, he wanted to fully repair it, but unfortunately, he could not achieve that. The treasure tower doesn't have these materials either? The young man in white was surprised. You must know that the treasure tower was the strongest refining sect in their great world. Yet even they didn't know the refining materials? The man in gray robes shook his head. Indeed, which is why I suspect that the materials for the void-flying boat likely aren't from our world but come from another. It's a pity, even after issuing an anonymous bounty at the treasure tower, no one has been able to tell the origin of these materials. That's really too bad. The young man in white felt quite regretful. His senior brother's void-flying boat was extremely mystical. Even in its damaged state, it could protect them, endure the violent spatial power, and cross half the immortal domain without harm. If it could be fully repaired, it's unimaginable how terrifying its power would become. Let's go. Let's first explore this small world a bit. Once we've gathered enough, we can sell the coordinates of this small world to the Heavenly Origin Great World. And I can also check if there are any refining materials for the void-flying boat in the Tianyuan world. The man in gray robes flew into the flying boat, and seeing this, the young man in white didn't delay, entering the flying boat as well. As the man in gray robes infused mana, a layer of array shield emerged around the void-flying boat, and then it transformed into a stream of light, swiftly flying toward the small world ahead. In the starry sky, distance is the most misleading thing. That small world seemed not far from where the two stood on the meteor. In reality, the distance was astonishingly far. Even with the speed of the void-flying boat, it took the two men in gray robes a whole hour to approach the small world. Of course, this was also because he hadn't activated the void ship's void-traversing ability. Otherwise, they could have reached the destination in just a few blinks. However, traversing the void consumed too much mana. Even with the realm cultivation of the man in gray robes, it couldn't be used many times. Since they were entering an unfamiliar small world, for safety, he ultimately chose the conventional flying mode. Indeed, this small world has only just revived, just right for us to enter. Stopping before the small world, looking at the grand boundary membrane and feeling the awe-inspiring energy coming from inside, the man in gray robes knew they had judged correctly. Without hesitation, he guided the void ship with his heart and spirit, shrinking its size. From its hull, a faint and mysterious aura emerged, piercing forward and effortlessly merging into the boundary membrane, flying towards the interior of the small world. Senior brother, your void-flying boat is truly mystical. Whether it's a secret realm seal or a world membrane, it can easily penetrate. Seeing this, the young man in white couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Without the void-flying boat, the two of them wouldn't have easily entered this small world. Just breaking through the boundary membrane would have taken considerable effort. It wouldn't have been as easy as it was now. It's just the boundary membrane of a small world, and a recently revived one at that. If it were our grand world of Yuan Hao, not even the void ship could easily breach the boundary membrane and enter directly. The man in gray robes shook his head and said, "Naturally, the power of a grand world far surpasses that of a small world. The difference is like that between the moon and a firefly. If the void ship could easily break through, it wouldn't just be a spiritual artifact, it would be the legendary Tao artifact." The young man in white replied with a smile. As the two senior brothers bantered, the void ship broke through the boundary membrane and reached the layers of celestial gale. Within the gale, various celestial gales and thunderous lights that even Golden Core realm dreaded struck the void ship, yet didn't even shake its protective light shield, let alone harm the two individuals inside the boat. After a while, the two senior brothers suddenly felt their eyes clearing, as if the previous gales and thunderlights were mere illusions, and everything had dispersed into nothingness. What lay ahead was a clear sky, extremely tranquil. But the two men in gray robes knew that what they had just witnessed was no illusion. The tranquility ahead was because they had successfully passed through the celestial gale layers and officially entered the interior of the small world. This small world is quite nice. Although it has only revived recently, the concentration of spiritual energy is already sufficient to sustain ordinary Golden Core realm cultivation. The man in gray robes sensed the external situation, feeling somewhat pleasantly surprised. The richer the spiritual energy, the higher the value of this realm, and the more benefits the two senior brothers, could obtain. Senior brother, it seems our luck this time is exceptionally good. The young man in white was equally delighted. Now it depends on whether this world has any strong figures capable of stopping us. A hint of coldness appeared in the eyes of the man in gray robes. According to the sex records, every birth and death cycle of these small worlds brings down the calamity of heavenly human 5 decays, cleansing the cultivators within. The calamity of heavenly human 5 decays is extremely terrifying. Even great beings of the primordial spirit realm struggle to resist. Aside from fleeing, there's no other way, not to mention the lower-level cultivators. This small world has only just revived. Even if there are cultivation geniuses, their strength won't be very formidable. No matter how strong, it won't exceed the Golden Core realm. So why should you worry, senior brother? The young man in white was full of confidence. As someone from a grand world, he had an innate sense of superiority, naturally not concerning himself too much with these small world natives. He was confident that even against the natives of this realm, even at the same cultivation level, he could easily slay them due to his cultivation techniques, and they were certainly not his match. Even so, we must not be careless. Although the man in gray robes agreed with his junior brother's words, his usual caution prevented him from lowering his guard. Just as the two of them were conversing, suddenly, an aura swept over from afar, leaving them both stunned. Is this the aura of a heavenly tribulation? Chapter 599, Golden Core formed. Overbearing pressure. The aura of a heavenly tribulation. Is someone crossing a tribulation? The two brothers were taken aback. They had just been discussing the potential strong figures in this world, and now they were sensing the aura of a heavenly tribulation. Judging by the intensity of this tribulation aura, it should be the Golden Core tribulation. Looks like there's a cultivator over there crossing the tribulation, preparing to form the Golden Core. The man in a gray robe perceived it and understood in his heart. Golden Core tribulation, it seems the one crossing the tribulation has considerable cultivation talent. This small world has only just started reviving, and already someone can form a Golden Core. Every world has its share of immensely talented individuals, even a small world. It seems this person crossing the tribulation is the pride of this small world. Of course, it could also be an ancient figure who has accumulated for many years, just waiting for the world's revival. Senior brother, shall we go and take a look? The young man in a white robe looked at the man in a gray robe. All right, perhaps we can gather some intelligence on this small world. The man in a gray robe did not refuse and nodded. If it is truly a talented genius, perhaps we can take them as a servant, or maybe capture them and sell them to other sects for a nice profit. The young man in a white robe chuckled sinisterly. The man in a gray robe said no more. He urged his mana, and the void ship immediately transformed into a stream of light, speeding swiftly in the direction of the tribulation aura. At the holy mountain, the second and third Saint Masters both wore worried expressions. It's already 5 tribulation thunders, and the tribulation cloud still hasn't dispersed. Could there be a 6th? The second Saint Master was full of concern. Without a doubt. The third Saint Master, watching the thunder light accumulating in the sky, also looked grim. But our elder brother is about to reach his limit. The second Saint Master's gaze turned towards the first Saint Master beneath the tribulation cloud, whose whole body was charred black. The vestment robe made from precious materials was tattered, and his breath was weak, looking miserable and pathetic. At this point, there's nothing we can do but trust in our elder brother. And besides, look at his state, he doesn't appear powerless. The third Saint Master said with determination. Beneath the tribulation cloud, the first Saint Master, whom his brothers were worried about, had bright eyes. He watched the thunder light in the sky gather once more, not the least bit afraid. Instead, he was filled with joy. The more tribulation thunders descended, the deeper his accumulation. As long as he successfully crossed the tribulation, the path of cultivation would be smooth ahead. Bring it on. I want to see just how deep my potential truly is. The first Saint Master absorbed the vitality chi emerging around him, resolutely observing the tribulation cloud, flickering with bright thunder light. Rumble. It seemed as though the tribulation cloud had heard the first Saint Master. Reaching its limit, it struck down with another bolt of tribulation thunder. This sixth tribulation thunder was much thicker than the previous ones. The emitted power felt suffocating to the second and third Saint Masters not far away. Bring it on. Facing the tribulation thunder, the first Saint Master's eyes shone brighter as he formed a spell with his hands. Once again, a massive earth dragon emerged from the ground to meet the tribulation thunder. This time, the earth dragon conjured by the first Saint Master was much larger than before. Even the details had become much more vivid, with clear scales, and its eyes seemed to hold spirit light. Evidently, after the baptism of the previous 5 tribulation thunders and absorbing a large amount of vitality chi, the first Saint Master was also undergoing some transformation, becoming more adept in his spell use. However, despite the increased power of the earth dragon, it was shattered upon contact with the 6th tribulation thunder. The power of the tribulation thunder itself was hardly depleted as it continued to crash towards the first Saint Master with destructive force. As it was about to reduce the first Saint Master to ashes, a thick earthy yellow light shield emerged from within him, enveloping his entire body. Boom! The tribulation thunder struck the earthy yellow light shield solidly, and in an instant, a massive amount of thunder light scattered and roamed, covering the surrounding area of 100 zhang. Elder brother! The second and third Saint Masters couldn't help but exclaim. The dazzling thunder light, alongside the destructive aura of the tribulation thunder, made them refrain from releasing divine soul power. Thus, for a moment, neither could determine the situation inside. After more than 10 breaths, the thunder light dissipated, revealing a scene of devastation in front of them. The ground was charred everywhere, pitted and uneven, with no intact spot in sight. Yet they paid no attention to this. They focused immediately on the figure in the center of that scorched land. Elder brother! Seeing the figure on the ground, like a piece of charcoal, with nearly vanished vitality, the second and third Saint Masters cried out again. At the same time, panic filled their hearts. Could Elder Brother have failed the tribulation crossing, unable to withstand it? With anguish in their hearts, they still dared not rush over, for fear of affecting their elder brother's tribulation crossing. Moreover, the tribulation cloud still lingered, leaving them anxiously waiting in place. Fortunately, after a few more breaths, the charred first Saint Master suddenly moved, his breath gradually rising. Then he suddenly flipped and sat up. Elder brother, you're all right? The second and third Saint Masters were overjoyed. Not dead yet, the first Saint Master replied. He extended his hand, and in his palm was a treasure bead broken into several pieces, earthy yellow in color. I didn't expect even a high-grade treasure couldn't withstand the power of the heavenly tribulation. A hint of heartache flashed in the first Saint Master's eyes. Chapter 600. This treasure bead is his strongest magical treasure in terms of defensive power, and its attributes are extremely compatible with his cultivation technique. Unexpectedly, it was destroyed under the heavenly tribulation. However, even with this treasure bead, he could barely withstand the tribulation thunder. Recalling the power of the tribulation thunder just experienced, the first saint felt a sense of relief. Although he was mentally prepared, when truly facing the sixth tribulation thunder, he realized he had still underestimated the Golden Core tribulation. The power of this sixth tribulation thunder far exceeded his imagination. Had it not been for his high-grade defensive treasure, nurtured for hundreds of years, he might have been reduced to ashes and perished under the tribulation thunder. However, the destruction of the treasure bead meant that his strongest trump card was used up. If the heavenly tribulation were to continue, then his attempt to cross the tribulation would be considered a failure. The first saint intensely watched the tribulation cloud above. If more lightning converged, he would have no choice but to use his final resort, sacrificing his physical body to preserve his life. The second and third saint also watched the heavenly tribulation cloud. The sixth tribulation thunder already destroyed the elder brother's Earth Yuan treasure pearl. If there is a seventh, the elder brother might truly not endure. Fortunately, under the gaze of the three, the lightning in the heavenly tribulation cloud flickered for a while, but eventually, no seventh tribulation thunder formed. It started to dissipate slowly. The tribulation cloud dispersed? The three looked at the gradually dissipating tribulation cloud, first stunned, then overjoyed. Did the elder brother succeed in crossing the tribulation? The tribulation cloud dispersed, and no more tribulation thunder descended. He surely succeeded in crossing the tribulation. Now the elder brother will begin forming the Golden Core, the third saint asserted. Just as he remarked, as the tribulation cloud slowly dispersed, a light imbued with the will of the heavenly Tao descended from the sky, enveloping the first saint. A vast amount of vitality qi emerged out of thin air, nourishing and healing his body. Simultaneously, various insights arose in the first saint's mind. Feeling enlightened, he immediately sat cross-legged, channeled his spiritual power throughout his body, and integrated the light's immortal rules aura into his spiritual power, guided by his newfound comprehension. As the cultivation technique circulated, gradually, an aura of perfection and authority emanated from the first saint. The burn marks left by the thunder tribulation gradually peeled off like dead skin, revealing jade-like new skin underneath. Finally, as the first saint opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the expectant gaze of his two sworn brothers. "Elder brother, have you broken through successfully?" Seeing the elder brother awake, the second saint quickly inquired. "Indeed, I have finally condensed the Golden Core and transformed my mana." The first saint nodded with a smile. "Congratulations, elder brother, for successfully crossing the tribulation and entering the Golden Core realm." The second saint joyfully congratulated. "The Golden Core tribulation is truly terrifying. Elder brother, even with your vast accumulation, almost couldn't overcome it." The third saint said with lingering fear. "Indeed," the first saint sighed. "I thought that with my millennia of cultivation, crossing the tribulation wouldn't be too difficult, but I was overconfident." No wonder the ancient texts recorded that even during the ancient immortal cultivation era, those at the perfect foundation establishment stage had only a 10 to 20% success rate in crossing the heavenly tribulation to form a core. Before crossing the tribulation, the first saint was full of confidence. Now, successfully forming the core, he instead felt a wave of fear. The path of cultivation is indeed filled with hardships and dangers, going against the heavens. If not for the protective magic pearl of a high-grade treasure he inadvertently acquired while traveling the world with a puppet Dharma body, he might have perished under the heavenly tribulation. Fortunately, though the process was perilous, the result was favorable. In the end, he successfully traversed the heavenly tribulation, achieving the Golden Core. Feeling the magic power Golden Core within him, full of harmony, the first saint felt a surge of ambition. "Elder brother, you should be the first cultivator in the world to step into the Golden Core realm. Even those in the 4 great secret places are behind you now," the third saint exclaimed. "Indeed, the 4 great secret places, relying on their long lineage, have always disregarded our holy mountain. This time, with you being the first to achieve the Golden Core, Let's see what they have to say, the second saint echoed. Such words cannot be spoken. The first saint shook his head. The great path of cultivation cannot be sought for momentary glory. I have merely taken one step ahead. Those friends within the 4 great secret places have deeper accumulations than I. It's just that they are hiding within their secret lands, with flawed foundations needing time to rectify, causing them to be slightly delayed compared to me. Once they restore their foundations to their peak, crossing the tribulation will likely be much easier for them. Though that's true, right now Elder Brother is the first gold core realm cultivator in the world. This is an undeniable fact. Even though the 4 great secret lands have deep backgrounds, they are ultimately lagging behind you, Elder Brother. Just as the second saint finished speaking, suddenly, a gentle voice descended from the sky. Is it true? Is there only one newly ascended golden core realm cultivator in this small world? Who? Who is it? The sudden voice caught the 3 saints by surprise. They looked up into the sky, and their pupils immediately contracted, because they saw 2 figures standing in the void overhead. Their robes were in white and gray, adorned with mysterious patterns, appearing profound and mystical. Witnessing these 2 figures, the 3 were greatly shocked. Even with their cultivation, they did not notice anyone approaching at such a close distance. More importantly, the 2 figures could stand in the air without relying on any magic artifact. This ability was definitely out of reach for foundation establishment stage cultivators. The first saint's heart was overwhelmed with shock, because he realized, having just crossed the heavenly tribulation and refined the magic power golden core, he could discern nothing about these 2 figures' origins in the sky. In his perception, their auras were as deep as an abyss, completely unreadable. Yet a strong sense of danger surged in his heart, alerting him to the terrifying nature of the 2 in the sky. In an instant, the first saint understood that these 2 sudden appearances were unimaginably powerful figures. His mind raced, although unsure of where these 2 mysterious strong people came from. His face swiftly displayed a humble smile. Greetings, esteemed seniors. Seniors. The second and third saints, seeing their elder brother's respectful demeanor, were first puzzled, but quickly grasped the situation. Suppressing their inner shock, they also bowed in greeting, respectfully saying, "Greetings, esteemed seniors." However, the humble attitudes of the 3 did not cause any change in the expressions of the gray-robed male siblings. The white-robed youth glanced at the 3 saints, his gaze instantly giving them a feeling of being completely seen through, causing them to shiver. Soon, the white-robed young man showed a look of disdain. "I thought we were really lucky to capture some native talents, but it turns out to be merely 3 aging dependents." His gaze fell on the first saint, increasing the pressure on him. "Even if you narrowly crossed the heavenly tribulation and formed a golden core, I don't see why you believe you're above us." The 3 saints could hear the contempt in the white-robed youth's voice and were infuriated. However, noting that the white-robed youth was not even concerned about their brother who had just stepped into the golden core realm, they dreaded his level of cultivation must be incredibly high. The 3 felt a strong sense of foreboding. "Senior brother, what should we do?" the white-robed youth asked his senior brother as they looked at the 3 saints. "Since these people seem to have unusual standing in this world, let's capture them first and figure out the situation of this world," the senior said.